Hello, horror lover. Are you ready for a long night of nightmares? Before we begin, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel, and especially leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I'd love to know. Click the like button, all of this because the incessant blare of my alarm clock jolted me awake, its harsh tones cutting through the peaceful morning silence. I groaned, fumbling to silence the noise before dragging myself out of bed. Another day, another dollar, as they say. My name is Alex Chen, and I'm just your average 32-year-old software developer living in the bustling city of Phoenix, Arizona. As I shuffled through my morning routine, shower, coffee, toast, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Maybe it was the way the neighbor's dog had been barking all night, or the strange email from work that had come in at 3 a.m. Whatever it was, it left an uneasy knot in my stomach. I grabbed my keys and headed out to my car, a reliable Honda Civic that had seen better days but still got me where I needed to go. The Arizona sun was already beating down mercilessly, promising another scorching day. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather hot against my skin, and started the engine. As I backed out of the driveway, I tapped the screen of my car's built-in GPS system. It was a recent upgrade I'd splurged on, and so far, it had been worth every penny. The cool female voice came to life, guiding me onto the familiar route to my office downtown. In 500 feet, turn right onto Saguaro Street, the GPS instructed. I frowned, my hand hesitating over the turn signal. Saguaro Street? That wasn't my usual route. Maybe there was an accident on my regular path, I reasoned, shrugging it off. I made the turn, trusting the system's judgment. As I merged onto the freeway, an unfamiliar male voice suddenly emanated from the GPS, startling me so badly I nearly swerved into the next lane. "Take exit 23B in 2 miles, the voice commanded, its tone oddly urgent. "What the hell?" I muttered, glancing at the screen. The interface looked the same, but this definitely wasn't the soothing female voice I was used to. "Since when did you get an attitude adjustment?" I tapped the screen, trying to access the settings, but nothing changed. The male voice continued, insistent. "Exit 23B, take it now." Against my better judgment, curiosity got the better of me. I signaled and took the exit, my heart rate picking up as I drove deeper into an industrial area I'd never explored before. The buildings grew more dilapidated, the streets emptier. Graffiti-covered walls and chain-link fences lined the roadside, a far cry from the sleek office buildings I was used to seeing on my commute. "Turn left at the next intersection," the GPS directed, its tone brooking no argument. I complied, my palms growing sweaty on the steering wheel. The road narrowed, and I found myself driving past a series of abandoned warehouses. Weeds pushed through cracks in the pavement, and broken windows stared out like empty eye sockets. The whole scene felt like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie. "Hey Siri," I called out to my phone, hoping to get some clarity. "Where am I?" No response. I glanced at my phone. No signal. Perfect. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I realized I was completely alone. No cars, no pedestrians, not even a stray dog. Just me and the increasingly ominous voice from my GPS. "Continue straight for 1 mile, it instructed. "Like hell I will," I muttered, finally snapping out of my daze. I pulled over to the side of the road, my tires crunching on broken glass. With shaking hands, I tried to reprogram the GPS, but the screen was unresponsive. "Alex," the voice said, making me jump. How did it know my name? "You need to continue. It's important." "Nope, nope, nope," I said aloud, throwing the car into reverse. "This is not happening." As I began to back up, I caught a glimpse of movement in my rearview mirror. A sleek black car had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, blocking my retreat. My heart leaped into my throat. I slammed on the brakes and threw the car into drive, peeling away down the desolate street. The black car's engine roared to life behind me, and suddenly I was in a high-speed chase through the industrial wasteland. "Left turn ahead," my GPS barked. "Take it now." Without thinking, I wrenched the wheel to the left, tires squealing in protest. The black car overshot the turn, buying me precious seconds. "Who are you?" I shouted at the GPS. "What do you want?" "Keep driving," was the only response. "You're almost there." "Almost where?" I demanded, but the voice had fallen silent. I weaved through the maze of abandoned buildings, my pursuer a constant presence in my rearview mirror. Just when I thought I couldn't take any more, I saw it. A main road up ahead, busy with morning traffic. Relief washed over me as I merged onto the familiar street, my car disappearing into the flow of commuters. I watched anxiously, but the black car didn't follow. As my breathing slowly returned to normal, I realized I was drenched in sweat, my shirt sticking uncomfortably to the seat. The GPS remained silent for the rest of the drive, the screen stubbornly blank. I took the familiar turns to my office on autopilot, my mind racing to make sense of what had just happened. As I pulled into the parking lot of my nondescript office building, a chill ran down my spine. There, 3 spaces down, was a sleek black car, the same one that had chased me. I sat frozen, engine idling, as a man in a dark suit stepped out of the car. He adjusted his sunglasses, looked directly at me, and smiled before walking towards the building. With trembling hands, I cut the engine and slumped back in my seat. What had I gotten myself into? Was I losing my mind, or was something sinister at play? My phone buzzed, making me jump. A text from my boss. "Alex, where are you? The client meeting started 10 minutes ago." Reality came crashing back. I was late for work, disheveled, and probably looked like I'd seen a ghost. How could I possibly explain what had just happened? As I stepped out of the car on shaky legs, I caught my reflection in the window. Wide-eyed, pale, with beads of sweat still clinging to my forehead. I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself. "Get it together, Alex," I muttered. It was just a GPS malfunction. A coincidence, nothing more. But as I walked towards the office, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The mysterious voice, the chase, the man in the black car, it all felt too deliberate, too coordinated to be a simple glitch. I paused at the entrance, my hand on the door handle. I could walk in, apologize for being late, and try to forget this ever happened. Or I could turn around, get back in my car, and start digging for answers. The choice I made in that moment would change everything. As I pushed open the door and stepped into the air-conditioned lobby, I knew one thing for certain. My ordinary life had just taken an extraordinary turn, and nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The events of yesterday played on a loop in my mind, each replay making it seem more surreal. Had it really happened? Or was I losing my grip on reality? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the drive ahead. "Okay, Alex," I muttered to myself. "It's just a normal commute. Nothing weird is going to happen." With trembling fingers, I reached out and tapped the screen of my GPS. The system came to life, displaying the familiar map of Phoenix. The soothing female voice I was used to filled the car. "Good morning, Alex. Your usual route to work is clear. Estimated arrival time is 8:45 a.m. I let out a sigh of relief. Normal. Everything was normal. As I pulled out of my driveway, I couldn't help but scan the street for any sign of that sleek black car. The neighborhood was quiet. Just a few early risers walking their dogs or retrieving their newspapers. No mysterious vehicles in sight. The drive was uneventful, almost boring in its normalcy. Traffic moved at its usual crawl, the radio droned on about local news, and my GPS dutifully guided me along my regular route. By the time I pulled into the office parking lot, I had almost convinced myself that yesterday's bizarre detour had been nothing more than a vivid daydream. Almost. As I walked into the office, my coworker Sarah waved me over to her desk. "Hey, Alex. You okay? You looked pretty frazzled yesterday when you finally showed up." I hesitated, then decided to confide in her. Maybe talking about it would help me make sense of things. "Actually, Sarah, something really weird happened on my way to work yesterday." Sarah's eyes lit up with curiosity. "Ooh, do tell. Was it that multi-car pileup on the 101? "No, it was." I paused, suddenly aware of how crazy I was about to sound. It was my GPS. It started acting strange, giving me weird directions. Led me to this creepy abandoned area. Sarah's expression shifted from interest to confusion. Your GPS? That's odd. Maybe it needed an update? No, you don't understand, I insisted, lowering my voice. The voice changed. It knew my name. And then there was this black car following me. Sarah's laugh cut me off, making me feel foolish and paranoid. Oh, Alex, you've been watching too many spy movies. It was probably just a glitch. These things happen, you know? I forced a chuckle, trying to play it off. Yeah, you're probably right. Just a glitch. Crazy what lack of sleep can do to your imagination, huh? Sarah nodded, already turning back to her computer. Totally. Hey, don't forget we have that team meeting at 11. Try to get some rest tonight, okay? I retreated to my desk, face burning with embarrassment. Of course, it sounded ridiculous when I said it out loud. A sentient GPS? A mysterious black car? I was acting like a character in a bad thriller novel. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and code reviews. By the time 5 p.m. rolled around, I had almost managed to convince myself that Sarah was right. Just a glitch, combined with an overactive imagination. As I settled into my car for the drive home, I felt a sense of calm. The evening traffic was heavy but moving, the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Everything was back to normal. Then, without warning, my GPS sprang to life. The male voice from yesterday filled the car, urgent and commanding. Exit now, take the desert route. My blood ran cold. No, I whispered. This isn't happening. Exit now, Alex, the voice insisted. It's not safe on this road. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white. Not this time, I growled, pressing down on the accelerator and zooming past the exit. The GPS grew more insistent, practically shouting now. Turn around, you're in danger. Shut up, I yelled, slamming my hand against the screen. The map flickered but didn't turn off. Instead, it began to show a route leading deep into the desert, far from any main roads or civilization. My eyes kept darting to the rearview mirror, searching for that black car from yesterday. Every vehicle that stayed behind me for more than a few seconds sent a jolt of panic through my system. Was I being followed? Or was I just being paranoid? As I neared my neighborhood, a sleek black SUV pulled up close behind me. Too close. My heart rate spiked, and I made a split-second decision. Instead of turning onto my street, I sped past it, taking a series of random turns through unfamiliar neighborhoods. The black SUV stayed with me, matching every turn. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I realized this was no coincidence. Someone was definitely following me. I told you it wasn't safe, the GPS voice chided. Take the next right, I can help you lose them. Like hell, I muttered, instead pulling a sharp U-turn. The SUV, caught off guard, overshot the turn. I floored it, putting as much distance between us as possible. After a few more erratic turns, I finally lost sight of my pursuer. Breathing heavily, I pulled into a small strip mall parking lot and cut the engine. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely text my roommate. Hey Jake, something came up. Might be home late. Don't wait up. I sat there for what felt like hours, jumping at every car that entered the lot. As the sky darkened, I realized I couldn't stay there all night. With a deep breath, I started the car and headed home, taking a long, circuitous route and constantly checking for any sign of the black SUV. When I finally pulled into my driveway, the house was dark. Jake must have gone to bed already. As I stepped out of the car, movement caught my eye. A figure quickly ducked behind my neighbor's fence, and my heart nearly leaped out of my chest. Hey! I called out, my voice cracking. Who's there? No response. Just the rustle of leaves in the night breeze. I sprinted to my front door, fumbling with my keys before practically falling inside. I slammed the door shut and engaged every lock, then sank to the floor, my back against the door. What was happening to me? Was I really being followed? Or was I losing my mind? The rational part of my brain argued that this was all just a series of coincidences, blown out of proportion by an overactive imagination. But another part, a a primal part driven by fear and instinct, screamed that something was very, very wrong. I pulled out my phone, finger hovering over the emergency call button, but what would I say? Hello, police? My GPS is trying to kidnap me, and I'm being chased by mysterious black cars. They'd think I was crazy. Maybe I was crazy. A notification popped up on my phone. A news alert about a series of sophisticated car thefts in the Phoenix area. The article mentioned that the thieves seemed to be using advanced technology to target specific vehicles. My blood ran cold. Could this be related to what was happening to me? Was I being targeted? I spent the rest of the night huddled on the couch, lights on, jumping at every sound. Sleep was out of the question. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching. GPS hacking, car theft rings, cybersecurity vulnerabilities. I dove deep into a world I never knew existed. As the first rays of dawn began to peek through the windows, I came to a chilling realization. This was bigger than just me. Whatever was happening, it was sophisticated, organized, and dangerous. I couldn't trust my car. I couldn't trust my phone. I couldn't even trust my own perception of reality anymore. As I sat there, bleary-eyed and on edge, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't ignore this any longer. It was time to fight back, to uncover the truth behind these strange occurrences. Little did I know my decision to dig deeper would set in motion a chain of events that would not only change my life, but potentially impact the lives of countless others. The sun rose on a new day, but for me, it felt like the dawn of a new reality, one filled with uncertainty, danger, and a growing sense that nothing would ever be the same again. The next week passed in a blur of paranoia and sleepless nights. Each day, I'd force myself into my car, heart pounding as I started the engine. And each day, like clockwork, my GPS would spring to life with its unsettling male voice, trying to lure me off course. "Take the next exit, Alex," it would insist. "There's a faster route through the industrial district." "Head west into the desert," it would urge. "Avoid the traffic on the freeway." Each suggestion was more outlandish than the last, always leading to remote, isolated locations. I ignored them all, white-knuckling my way through my daily commute, constantly on edge. It was Friday evening when I finally snapped. The GPS had just suggested a scenic route through an abandoned mining town, and I'd had enough. "What do you want from me?" I shouted at the dashboard, slamming my palm against the screen. "Why are you doing this?" To my shock, the GPS responded, "I'm trying to help you, Alex. You're in danger." I nearly swerved off the road. "What kind of danger? Who are you?" But the voice fell silent, leaving me with nothing but the usual map display and a growing sense of dread. When I got home, I immediately booted up my laptop. It was time to get to the bottom of this. I opened a new document and began typing, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I detailed every strange occurrence over the past week. Monday. GPS suggested route through abandoned warehouse district. Tuesday. Attempted to direct me to a remote trailhead in the Superstition Mountains. Wednesday. Insisted on a detour through a neighborhood that had been evacuated due to a gas leak. Thursday. Tried to route me to a closed airfield on the outskirts of town. Friday. Suggested scenic route through Ghost Town. As I stared at the list, a chill ran down my spine. This wasn't random. There was a clear pattern. Each suggested location was isolated, far from populated areas, perfect for an ambush. "What the hell have I stumbled into?" I muttered, running a hand through my disheveled hair. A knock at my bedroom door made me jump. "Alex?" It was my roommate, Jake. "You okay, man? You've been acting weird all week." I hesitated, then called out, "Yeah, come in." Jake entered, his brow furrowed with concern. "Dude, you look like crap. What's going on?" For a moment, I considered brushing him off, but the weight of the past week came crashing down on me. I needed to talk to someone, anyone, before I lost my mind. "Jake, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I swear something strange is happening," I began, then launched into the whole bizarre tale, The GPS, the black cars, the feeling of being watched. To his credit, Jake listened without interrupting, his expression growing more concerned by the minute. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Alex," he said slowly, "have you considered that maybe you're under too much stress? I mean, this all sounds insane, I know." I cut him off. "But I swear it's real. Look at this pattern." I shoved my laptop towards him, showing him the list I'd made. Jake scanned it, frowning. "Okay, I'll admit that's weird. But it could just be a glitch in the system, right? Maybe your GPS got hacked or something." "Maybe," I conceded. "But that doesn't explain the black cars, or the feeling of being watched." Jake sighed, rubbing his temples. "All right, let's say for a minute that this is all real. What do you think is happening? Who would want to, kidnap you?" I shook my head. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." That night, after Jake had gone to bed, I dove deep into the darker corners of the internet. Forums about GPS hacking, conspiracy theory boards, even some questionable sites about organized crime. My eyes burned from the blue light of the screen, but I couldn't stop. As the first rays of dawn began to peek through my window, I stumbled upon a thread that made my blood run cold. It was buried deep in a tech forum, started by a user called Targeted2. "Is anyone else's GPS trying to lead them to remote locations? I think I'm being stalked by my own car. Please help." The thread was full of responses, each more chilling than the last. People from all over the country describing experiences eerily similar to mine. GPS systems going haywire, suggesting dangerous routes, voices changing, and in every case the poster mentioned seeing black vehicles following them. My hands shook as I created an account and typed out a response. "This is happening to me too. Phoenix, AZ. Started a week ago, black cars following me. What's going on?" I hit send and leaned back in my chair, my mind reeling. This was bigger than just me. Whatever was happening, it was widespread, organized, and terrifying. A notification pinged, a private message from Targeted2. "Delete your post. They're watching. Call this number if you want answers. 555-187. My finger hovered over the call button. Was this a trap, or my only chance at understanding what was happening? Before I could decide, a loud bang from outside made me jump. I rushed to the window, peering out through the blinds. My heart nearly stopped. There, parked across the street, was a sleek black SUV. A man in a dark suit was stepping out, his gaze fixed on my house. No, 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 I muttered, stumbling back from the window. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not at my home. I grabbed my phone and keys, then hesitated. My car wasn't safe. The GPS could be tracked. I needed another way out. As quietly as I could, I slipped out the back door and into the early morning darkness. The cool desert air hit my face as I started running. No destination in mind, just an overwhelming need to get away. I ducked through alleyways and side streets, constantly looking over my shoulder. After what felt like hours, I found myself in a small 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town. Breathless and sweating, I slid into a booth. A tired-looking waitress approached. "Coffee, hun?" I nodded, trying to calm my racing heart. As she poured the steaming liquid, I pulled out my phone. The number from Targeted2 glowed on the screen, taunting me. With a deep breath, I hit call. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. "Hello, Alex," a distorted voice answered. "We've been expecting your call." My blood ran cold. "Who is this? How do you know my name?" "We know a lot more than just your name," the voice replied. "If you want answers, go to the old drive-in theater on Route 66. Come alone. You have 1 hour." The line went dead. I sat there, the untouched coffee growing cold, faced with an impossible choice. Go to the meeting and potentially walk into a trap, or continue running from an enemy I didn't understand. As I weighed my options, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the diner's window. I looked haggard, scared, a far cry from the ordinary software developer I'd been just a week ago. But in my eyes there was something new, a determination, a fire. I stood up, leaving some cash on the table. Whatever was waiting for me at that drive-in, I was done running. It was time to face this head-on. As I stepped out into the brightening day, I knew one thing for certain. By the time the sun set, my life would never be the same again. The drive-in theater loomed ahead, a relic of a bygone era. And somewhere in those abandoned ruins answers awaited, or perhaps a trap. Either way, there was no turning back now. I took a deep breath and started walking towards my destiny, the weight of the unknown pressing down on me with each step. The old drive-in theater loomed before me, a skeletal remnant of a bygone era. The massive screen, once a beacon of entertainment, now stood weathered and torn, flapping ominously in the desert breeze. Rusted speaker poles dotted the cracked asphalt like tombstones, a silent audience to whatever was about to unfold. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached the dilapidated ticket booth. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out like grasping fingers. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to run, but I pressed on. I needed answers. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and uncertain in the vast emptiness. "I'm here, where are you?" Silence answered me, broken only by the crunch of gravel under my feet and the distant cry of a hawk. I made my way towards the concession stand, its boarded-up windows staring blankly at me. Suddenly, a voice crackled to life, emanating from a hidden speaker somewhere nearby. It was the same distorted voice from the phone call. "You're brave, Alex. Foolish, perhaps, but brave." I spun around, trying to locate the source. "Show yourself. I'm done with these games." A chuckle, devoid of humor. "Games? Oh, Alex, this is no game. This is your life now. But very well. Let's talk face to face." The door to the projection booth swung open with a rusty groan. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the setting sun. As they descended the metal staircase, features came into focus. A woman, probably in her late 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Who are you?" I demanded, taking an involuntary step back. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "My name is Diana, and I'm here to save your life, whether you like it or not." "Save my life? From what? You're the ones who've been terrorizing me." Diana shook her head. "No, Alex. We've been trying to protect you. Those black cars, the ones following you, they're not with us. They're after you, and they're getting closer every day." My mind reeled. "But the GPS? The strange directions?" "Our attempts to get you to safety," Diana explained. "We've been trying to lead you to secure locations, away from populated areas where they could easily grab you." I ran a hand through my hair, struggling to process this information. "Who are they? What do they want with me?" Diana's expression darkened. "They're a group we call the Syndicate, a shadowy organization with tentacles in everything from corporate espionage to human trafficking. And you, Alex, have something they want very badly." "What?" "I'm nobody. I'm just a software developer." "Are you?" Diana raised an eyebrow. "Think hard, Alex. That project you've been working on for the past 6 months, the one your company said was just a routine update to banking software, it's much more than that." A cold feeling settled in the pit of my stomach as realization dawned. "The blockchain integration, the new security protocols," Diana nodded. "Exactly. You've unknowingly created a backdoor into the global financial system. In the wrong hands, it could destabilize economies, bankrupt nations." I felt sick. "No, that's impossible. We had safeguards, fail-safes, all of which can be bypassed if someone has the right key. A key that exists in only one place." Diana tapped her temple. "Your mind, Alex. You're the only one who knows the full system architecture. That makes you the most valuable target in the world right now." My legs felt weak. I stumbled to a nearby bench, collapsing onto it. "This can't be happening. It's too much." Diana sat beside me, her voice softening slightly. I know it's overwhelming, but you need to understand the gravity of the situation. The syndicate won't stop until they have what's in your head, and they're not known for asking nicely. I looked up at her, fear and anger warring inside me. So what now? What am I supposed to do? Come with us, Diana said. We have a safe house where we can protect you, help you understand the full scope of what you've created. Us? Who's us? Diana smiled enigmatically. Let's just say we're a group of concerned citizens with resources. We've been tracking the syndicate's activities for years. I stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth. This is insane. How do I know I can trust you? How do I know you're not part of this syndicate? You don't, Diana admitted. But ask yourself this. If we wanted to harm you, why go through all this elaborate setup? We could have grabbed you at any time over the past week. She had a point, but doubt still gnawed at me. I need proof. Something, anything to show me you're telling the truth. Diana nodded, reaching into her jacket. I tensed, half expecting her to pull out a weapon. Instead, she produced a tablet. Watch this. She hit play on a video. It showed grainy surveillance footage of my office building. I watched in horror as a team of men in black tactical gear efficiently subdued the night security guard and made their way to my floor. They ransacked my desk, downloaded files from my computer. This was 3 nights ago, Diana explained. They're getting bolder. It's only a matter of time before they come for you directly. The reality of the situation came crashing down on me. This was real. All of it. My life as I knew it was over. Okay, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Okay. What do we do now? Diana stood, gesturing towards a black SUV that had appeared at the entrance of the drive-in. Now, we get you to safety. We'll brief you fully once we're secure. As we walked towards the vehicle, a thought struck me. Wait, what about my family? My friends? Are they in danger? Diana's expression was grim. Potentially. But we have a team keeping an eye on them. For now, the less they know, the safer they are. We reached the SUV, and Diana opened the rear door. As I was about to step in, the sound of screeching tires filled the air. Another vehicle burst into the drive-in, kicking up a cloud of dust. Get in, now! Diana shouted, pushing me into the SUV and slamming the door. Everything happened in a blur. Our driver floored it, and we shot forward just as men began pouring out of the other vehicle, weapons drawn. The crack of gunfire filled the air as we sped away, bullets pinging off the reinforced body of our SUV. Are those... I couldn't finish the sentence. The syndicate, Diana confirmed, her face taut with tension. Looks like we got to you just in time. As we raced through the desert night, the reality of my new life settled over me like a heavy blanket. There was no going back now. I was in the middle of something bigger than I could have ever imagined, with forces I didn't understand fighting over the knowledge in my head. Where are we going? I asked, my voice shaky. Diana's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Somewhere they can't find us. But Alex, I need you to understand something. From this moment on, your old life is over. The person you were yesterday, he doesn't exist anymore. Are you ready for that? I looked out the window at the familiar landscape of Phoenix fading into the distance. My home, my job, my friends. Everything I knew was disappearing behind us. Do I have a choice? I asked bitterly. Diana's response was soft but firm. There's always a choice, Alex. But sometimes, all the options are hard ones. As we sped into the unknown, my mind raced with questions. What had I really created? How deep did this conspiracy go? And most importantly, would I ever be able to reclaim my life? The answers, I feared, lay in a future that was now as dark and uncertain as the desert night surrounding us. But one thing was clear. The confrontation at the drive-in was just the beginning. Whatever came next would test me in ways I couldn't even imagine. The SUV ate up the miles, carrying me towards a destiny I never asked for, but could no longer avoid. As the last lights of Phoenix faded from view, I steeled myself for what was to come. Ready or not, my new life had begun. The safe house turned out to be a nondescript ranch-style home on the outskirts of Flagstaff, nestled among towering ponderosa pines. As we pulled into the gravel driveway, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into another trap. But what choice did I have? Diana led me inside, where a team of people hunched over computers and surveillance equipment. They barely looked up as we entered, too engrossed in their work. "Welcome to Command Central," Diana said, gesturing around the room. "This is where we've been tracking the syndicate's movements and trying to keep you safe." A tall, lanky man with salt and pepper hair approached us. "So this is our guy," he said, eyeing me critically. "I'm Jack, head of operations. Gotta say, you've caused us a lot of sleepless nights, Alex." I bristled at his tone. "Yeah, well, it hasn't exactly been a picnic for me either." Jack's expression softened slightly. "Fair enough. Look, we know you've been through hell, but we need your help if we're going to take down the syndicate," Diana interjected. "Jack, he's been through enough. Let's give him a moment to—" "We don't have a moment," Jack cut her off. "The syndicate is closing in. We need to act now." My head was spinning. "Act? What are you talking about?" Jack and Diana exchanged a look. Finally, Diana sighed and turned to me. "We have a plan, Alex. A way to draw out the syndicate and gather enough evidence to bring them down. But it's risky and we can't do it without you." I collapsed into a nearby chair, suddenly exhausted. "What kind of plan?" Jack leaned against a desk, his eyes intense. "A sting operation. We use you as bait, lure them out into the open. Once we have concrete evidence of their activities, we can involve federal authorities." "Use me as bait?" I echoed, disbelief coloring my voice. "Are you insane? These people want to kidnap me, maybe even kill me." "We'll have eyes on you the entire time," Diana assured me. "A full tactical team ready to move in at a moment's notice. You'll be as safe as we can possibly make you." I laughed bitterly. "Safe? I haven't felt safe in weeks. And now you want me to willingly put myself in danger?" Jack's voice was hard. "You're already in danger, Alex. Every moment you're out there, you're a target. This way, at least we control the situation." I stood up, pacing the room. My mind raced, weighing the impossibly high stakes. What exactly would I have to do? Diana pulled out a tablet, bringing up a map. "We've identified a location where we believe the syndicate has been operating. An abandoned gas station just off Route 66, about 50 miles east of here. We want you to drive there, following the GPS directions as you normally would." "And then what? Just wait to be kidnapped?" Jack shook his head. "Not quite. We'll have you wired up. Your job is to get them talking to confirm their intentions. Once we have that on record, our team moves in." I ran a hand through my hair, tugging at it in frustration. "This is insane. What if something goes wrong? What if they just decide to shoot me on sight?" "That's not their MO, Diana said softly. "They need what's in your head, remember? They'll want to take you alive." "Oh, that's comforting," I spat sarcastically. Jack stepped forward, his voice low and intense. "Look, I know we're asking a lot, but think about what's at stake here. If the syndicate gets their hands on what you've created, the consequences would be catastrophic. Global economic collapse, chaos on an unimaginable scale. You have the power to stop that, Alex." I felt the weight of his words settle on my shoulders. He was right, of course. I couldn't just walk away from this, no matter how much I wanted to. "Okay," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do it, but I want your word that you'll do everything in your power to keep me safe." Diana nodded solemnly. "You have it. We'll start preparations immediately." The next few hours were a blur of activity. I was fitted with a hidden microphone and a panic button disguised as a watch. The team ran me through various scenarios, coaching me on what to say and how to react. As dawn broke, I found myself sitting in a nondescript sedan, my hands shaking slightly as I gripped the steering wheel. Diana's voice came through the earpiece they'd given me. Remember, Alex, we'll be right behind you the whole time. If at any point you feel you're in immediate danger, hit the panic button. We'll be there in seconds. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Okay, I'm ready. I started the engine and immediately the GPS sprang to life. The familiar male voice that had been haunting me for weeks filled the car. Good morning, Alex. I see you're finally ready to listen. Take Route 66 East. I'll guide you to safety. I pulled out onto the road, acutely aware of the unmarked vehicles following at a discreet distance. The Arizona landscape flew by, a blur of red rocks and scrub brush. With each mile, my anxiety grew. After about an hour of driving, the GPS spoke again. Exit ahead, the gas station on your right. Pull in there. I saw it in the distance, a dilapidated structure that looked like it hadn't seen a customer in decades. My mouth went dry as I pulled into the cracked parking lot. I'm here, I said quietly, knowing the team could hear me. What now? Now we wait. Diana's voice came through the earpiece. Stay in the car. Be alert. Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours. The desert sun beat down mercilessly, turning the car into an oven. Just as I was about to suggest calling it off, a cloud of dust appeared on the horizon. Vehicle approaching, Jack's tense voice reported in my ear. Everyone stand by. A black SUV pulled into the lot, parking a few spaces away from me. Two men in dark suits stepped out, their eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses. Mr. Chen, one of them called out. Step out of the vehicle, please. We need to talk. My heart pounding, I opened the door and got out, trying to keep my legs from shaking. Who are you? I demanded, proud that my voice didn't waver. The taller of the two men smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We're friends, Alex. Friends who are very interested in that brilliant mind of yours. You don't look like friends, I retorted. Friends don't stalk people or try to run them off the road. The shorter man chuckled. Ah, yes. Our methods may have been a bit aggressive. But surely you understand the importance of what you've created? I swallowed hard. And what exactly do you think I've created? Don't play coy, Mr. Chen, the tall one said, his voice hardening. Your work on blockchain integration, the backdoor into the global financial system, it's revolutionary. In the right hands, it could reshape the world. In the right hands, I repeated. And I suppose those hands are yours? The short man spread his arms wide. We represent interests that understand the true potential of your work. Governments, corporations, they'd only squander it. We can use it to bring about real change. By destabilizing economies, bankrupting nations, I challenged, remembering Diana's words. The tall man's eyebrows rose. So you do understand. Yes, there may be some collateral damage, but imagine a world where we control the flow of wealth. We could end poverty, fund revolutionary technologies, reshape society itself. At what cost? I asked, my voice rising. How many lives would be destroyed in the process? The short man's face darkened. Enough questions. You're coming with us, Mr. Chen. We have a facility where you can continue your work under our guidance. He reached for me, and I stumbled back. I don't think so, I said, my finger hovering over the panic button on my watch. Suddenly, the air was filled with the sound of screeching tires and shouted commands. SUVs swarmed into the lot from all directions and armed agents poured out, weapons trained on the two men. Federal agents, hands where we can see them. Jack's voice boomed through a megaphone. The two men froze, then slowly raised their hands. As they were being cuffed and led away, Diana appeared at my side. You did it, Alex, she said, a rare smile on her face. We got them. Their whole confession is on tape. I sagged with relief, the adrenaline draining out of me. Is it over? Diana's expression turned serious. This chapter is, but the syndicate is vast. There will be others who come looking for what you know. I looked out at the desert stretching to the horizon, suddenly feeling very small and very tired. So what happens now? She placed a hand on my shoulder. Now we keep you safe while we dismantle their operation. And you, Alex, have a decision to make. Do you want to go back to your old life, always looking over your shoulder? Or are you ready to join us, to use your skills to make sure nothing like this ever happens again? As the sun beat down on the dusty lot, I pondered my options. My old life seemed like a distant memory, impossibly naive and carefree. But the path Diana was offering, it was dangerous, uncertain. Yet as I watched the agents securing the scene, I felt something stirring inside me. A sense of purpose, of righteous anger at what these people had tried to do. "I'm in," I said finally, my voice firm. "Whatever it takes, I want to help bring them down." Diana nodded, a glint of approval in her eyes. "Welcome to the team, Alex. The real work starts now." As we walked towards the waiting vehicles, I cast one last look at the abandoned gas station. It stood as a monument to the end of my old life and the beginning of something new, something dangerous, exhilarating, and utterly unpredictable. The sting operation was over, but I knew in my gut that this was just the beginning of a much larger battle, and somehow, against all odds, I was ready for it. The euphoria of our successful sting operation was short-lived. We had barely made it back to the safe house when all hell broke loose. I was sitting in the makeshift command center, giving my statement to a stern-faced FBI agent, when suddenly alarms blared throughout the building. Jack burst into the room, his face ashen. "We've been compromised," he shouted over the noise. "The syndicate, they're here." Diana was instantly on her feet. "How? We were careful." Jack shook his head, already moving towards a bank of computers. "They must have had a mole in the FBI. We need to evacuate. Now!" The room erupted into chaos. Agents scrambled to secure equipment and data, while others readied weapons. I stood frozen, my mind struggling to process the sudden shift from victory to danger. Diana grabbed my arm, her grip like iron. "Alex, we need to move. Follow me." She led me down a hallway to a back room I hadn't seen before. Inside was a small arsenal of weapons and tactical gear. Diana quickly strapped on a bulletproof vest and handed me one. "Put this on," she ordered, then tossed me a backpack. "This has everything you'll need if we get separated. Money, burner phones, fake IDs." My hands shook as I fumbled with the vest. "Separated? What do you mean?" Diana's eyes met mine, deadly serious. "The syndicate will stop at nothing to get you, Alex. If it comes down to it, you might have to run on your own." Before I could respond, the sound of gunfire erupted from the front of the house. Jack's voice crackled over a radio on Diana's hip. "They've breached the perimeter. Diana, get Alex out of here. We'll hold them off as long as we can." Diana grabbed a sleek pistol from a nearby rack and pressed it into my hands. "You remember how to use this?" I nodded, thinking back to the crash course in firearms they'd given me earlier. It felt like a lifetime ago. "Good," she said. "Stay close to me and do exactly as I say." We moved swiftly through the house, the sounds of combat growing louder. As we reached the garage, a massive explosion rocked the building. The lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. "Damn it," Diana muttered. "They're trying to cut off our escape routes." She hit a button on the wall, and the garage door slowly began to rise. Outside, I could see flashes of gunfire and the glow of flames. My heart pounded in my chest, fear threatening to overwhelm me. Diana turned to me, her face illuminated by the chaos outside. "Alex, listen carefully. There's a motorcycle in the corner. It's fast and maneuverable. If things go south, I want you to take it and run. Head east into the forest. There's a cabin about 20 miles in. You'll be safe there." I shook my head vehemently. "No, I'm not leaving you." A sad smile flickered across her face. "Your safety is the priority, Alex. Remember that." Before I could argue further, a group of black-clad figures appeared at the end of the driveway. Diana shoved me behind a car and opened fire. The attackers scattered, returning fire with a vengeance. "Go!" Diana shouted. "I'll cover you." Adrenaline surging, I sprinted for the motorcycle. Just as I reached it, I heard Diana cry out in pain. I turned to see her clutching her shoulder, blood seeping between her fingers. "Diana!" I yelled, starting to move towards her. "No!" she roared. "Get out of here! That's an order!" With a final, anguished look at her, I kicked the motorcycle to life. The engine roared, and I shot out of the garage into the chaos of the night. Bullets whizzed past me as I swerved down the driveway. I could hear shouts behind me, engines revving as they gave chase. The forest loomed ahead, dark and forbidding. I plunged into the trees, branches whipping at my face as I struggled to control the powerful bike on the uneven terrain. The sounds of pursuit faded slightly, but I knew they weren't far behind. For what felt like hours, I weaved through the dense forest, the motorcycle's headlight casting eerie shadows. Every sound made me flinch, certain that at any moment I'd be surrounded. Finally, the trees began to thin. I burst out onto a narrow road, the sudden smooth surface almost causing me to lose control. As I steadied the bike, I caught sight of headlights in my rearview mirror. "No, no, no," I muttered, twisting the throttle. The bike leapt forward, eating up the miles. But the car behind me was gaining. I could see now that it was a sleek black SUV, exactly like the ones the syndicate had used before. Panic clawed at my throat as I pushed the motorcycle to its limits. Suddenly, the road curved sharply. I took it too fast, the bike sliding out from under me. I hit the ground hard, rolling several times before coming to a stop in a ditch. Pain lanced through my body as I struggled to my feet. The SUV's headlights illuminated me, and I heard car doors slamming. "Mr. Chen," a familiar voice called out. It was the tall man from the gas station. "There's nowhere left to run. Come with us now, and no one else has to get hurt." I backed away, my hand fumbling for the gun Diana had given me. "Stay back, I'm warning you." The man chuckled, stepping into the light. "Come now, Alex. We both know you're not going to shoot anyone. You're a creator, not a killer. That's why we need you." My back hit a tree, and I realized with horror that I was cornered. The man continued to advance, flanked by two others with guns drawn. "Think about it," he said, his voice almost gentle. "With your mind and our resources, we could reshape the world. No more poverty, no more inequality. A true utopia." For a moment, I faltered. The idea was seductive, I had to admit. But then I thought of Diana, bleeding back at the safe house, of Jack and the others fighting for their lives. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Your utopia would be built on suffering and death. I won't be a part of that." The man's face hardened. "I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Chen, but you don't really have a choice." He nodded to one of his men who raised his gun. I closed my eyes, waiting for the impact, but it never came. Instead, the night erupted with the sound of helicopter rotors. Bright searchlights flooded the area, and a voice boomed from above. "This is the FBI. Drop your weapons and put your hands in the air." The syndicate men hesitated, clearly caught off guard. In that moment of confusion, I made my move. I dove to the side, scrambling up the embankment and into the trees. Gunfire erupted behind me as I ran, branches tearing at my clothes. I could hear shouts and the thud of boots as both the syndicate and the FBI gave chase. I ran blindly through the forest, my lungs burning, every muscle screaming for rest. But I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. As I burst through a thicket, I suddenly found myself on the edge of a cliff. Below, a river rushed by, white water gleaming in the moonlight. I turned, hearing my pursuers getting closer. In that moment, I made a choice. With a deep breath, I stepped off the edge and plunged into the icy water below. The current swept me away, tumbling me over and over. I fought to keep my head above water, gasping for air whenever I could. The roar of the river drowned out all other sounds, leaving me alone with the primal fight for survival. I don't know how long I was in the water. It could have been minutes or hours. But eventually, the current slowed, and I managed to drag myself onto a rocky shore. I lay there, coughing and shivering, utterly spent. As the adrenaline faded, the reality of my situation hit me. I was alone, in the middle of nowhere, hunted by forces I barely understood. With trembling hands, I reached for the backpack Diana had given me. Miraculously, it was still there, waterlogged but intact. Inside, I found a phone, some cash, and a set of dry clothes. As I changed, my mind raced. What now? Where could I go that the syndicate wouldn't find me? And what about Diana and the others? Were they even still alive? I turned on the phone, relieved to see it still worked. There was only one number programmed into it. With a deep breath, I hit dial. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a click and a familiar voice. Alex? Thank God. Are you safe? It was Diana. She was alive. Relief washed over me, so intense I nearly collapsed. Diana, I choked out. I don't know where I am. The syndicate, they found us and I had to jump in a river and... Slow down, she interrupted. Are you hurt? I took stock of myself. Bruised and cold, but okay, I think. Good, she said, her voice softening slightly. Listen carefully, Alex. Things are worse than we thought. The syndicate's reach, it's far beyond what we imagined. We can't trust anyone right now. My heart sank. So what do we do? There was a pause, and when Diana spoke again, her voice was heavy with resolve. We go off the grid, completely. I'm sending you coordinates to a secure location. Meet me there in 3 days, and Alex? Yes? Trust no one. The fate of the world might very well depend on what's in your head. Stay safe. The line went dead, leaving me alone with the sound of the river and the weight of an impossible responsibility. As I stood up, my body protesting every movement, I looked up at the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, forces beyond my comprehension were moving, shaping the future of the world. And somehow, improbably, I was at the center of it all. With a deep breath, I shouldered my pack and began to walk. The escape was over, but the real journey was just beginning. The first rays of dawn were breaking over the horizon as I stumbled into the small town of Payson, Arizona. My clothes were still damp. My body ached from the night's ordeal and exhaustion clouded my mind. But I couldn't stop. Not yet. I found a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town, a neon sign flickering weakly in the early morning light. As I pushed open the door, a bell chimed softly, and the smell of coffee and grease enveloped me. An elderly waitress looked up from behind the counter, her eyes widening slightly at my disheveled appearance. Honey, you look like you've been through the ringer. Sit yourself down, I'll get you some coffee. I slid into a booth, my muscles screaming in protest. Thank you, I managed to croak out. As she bustled about, I pulled out the phone Diana had given me. The coordinates she'd sent pointed to a location deep in the Tonto National Forest, about a day's journey from here. But first, I needed to regroup, to try and make sense of everything that had happened. The waitress returned with a steaming mug of coffee and a sympathetic smile. You want to talk about it, hun? For a moment, I was tempted to pour out the whole crazy story. But Diana's warning echoed in my mind. Trust no one. I forced a weak smile. Just had a rough night camping. Got a little lost. She nodded, clearly not believing me, but kind enough not to pry. Well, you just holler if you need anything else. As she walked away, I pulled out the laptop from my backpack, relieved to find it still functional despite its dunking in the river. The diner's free Wi-Fi was slow but usable. Time to do some digging. I started with news reports about the safe house attack, but there was nothing, not even a mention of a disturbance. It was as if the entire incident had been erased. Frowning, I dug deeper, searching for any information on the syndicate. Hours passed as I fell down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and shadowy corporate structures. The more I uncovered, the more my blood ran cold. The syndicate wasn't just a criminal organization. It was a vast network that seemed to touch every aspect of global finance and politics. Shell companies, offshore accounts, compromised officials. The web of corruption was mind-boggling. And at the center of it all was a project codenamed Prometheus. My project. No, I whispered, staring at the screen in disbelief. This can't be right. But the evidence was there. buried in financial reports and redacted government documents. The blockchain integration I'd been working on wasn't just a banking update. It was the key to a system that could control the entire global economy. With trembling hands, I opened my work files, diving into the code I'd written over the past months. Now that I knew what to look for, I could see it. Subtle backdoors, hidden protocols that I'd implemented without fully understanding their purpose. "Oh God," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "What have I done?" "Refill, hun." The waitress's voice made me jump. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart racing. No, thank you," I stammered. "Actually, could I get the check?" As I paid, I noticed a man in a dark suit enter the diner, his eyes scanning the room before landing on me. My pulse quickened. Could the syndicate have found me already? I grabbed my backpack and headed for the door, trying not to look suspicious. But as I reached for the handle, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. "Mr. Chen," a low voice said, "we need to talk." I spun around, ready to fight or flee, but the man held up a badge. "Agent Reeves, FBI, please come with me." My mind raced. Was he really FBI, or was this another syndicate trick? Either way, I couldn't risk it. "I'm sorry," I said, "but I can't." I shoved past him and burst out of the diner, sprinting down the street. I could hear him shouting behind me, but I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned, ducking through alleys and side streets. Finally, I spotted a bus depot. Without thinking, I rushed inside and bought a ticket for the next bus leaving town. As I settled into my seat, my heart still pounding, I pulled out the phone again. I had to warn Diana. The phone rang once before she picked up. "Alex, what's wrong?" "Diana," I gasped, still out of breath. "The project, Prometheus, it's worse than we thought. It's not just about banking, it's—" "Alex, stop," she interrupted, her voice tense. "The line might not be secure. Where are you?" I hesitated, then decided to trust her. "On a bus leaving Payson. Diana, there was an FBI agent." "Listen to me very carefully," she cut in. "Change your plans. Don't come to the coordinates I sent you. There's a town called Pine, about 30 miles north of Payson. Get off there and find the Rusty Nail Saloon. Ask for Mike. He'll help you. But Diana, there's no time, Alex. They're closing in. Remember, trust no one, not even me. Everything depends on you now." The line went dead, leaving me with more questions than answers. The bus ride was tense, every mile increasing my paranoia. When we finally reached Pine, I practically leapt off the bus, my eyes darting around for any sign of pursuit. The Rusty Nail Saloon was easy to find, a weathered wooden building that looked like it had been there since the town was founded. As I pushed open the creaking door, the smell of stale beer and cigarette smoke assaulted my senses. A few patrons looked up as I entered, their gazes suspicious. I made my way to the bar, where a burly man with a thick beard was wiping glasses. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm looking for Mike." The bartender's eyes narrowed. "Who's asking?" I swallowed hard. Tell him it's about Prometheus." The bartender's expression didn't change, but he nodded towards a door in the back. "Through there." Heart pounding, I made my way to the door and knocked. A gruff voice called out, "Enter." I stepped into a small office, cluttered with papers and old computer equipment. Behind a desk sat an older man, his weathered face partially hidden behind a bushy mustache. "So," he said, eyeing me critically, "you're the one Diana sent. Gotta say, you don't look like much." I bristled slightly. "And you're Mike, I presume?" He nodded, then gestured to a chair. "Sit down, kid. We've got a lot to talk about." As I sat, Mike leaned forward, his eyes intense. "First things first. What do you know about Prometheus?" I took a deep breath, then told him everything. My work on the blockchain integration, the attack on the safe house, my discoveries at the diner. Mike listened silently, his expression growing grimmer with each word. When I finished, he let out a long sigh. It's worse than we thought. The syndicate is closer to their goal than we realized. Their goal? I asked. What exactly are they trying to do? Mike stood up and walked to a large map on the wall. Think about it, kid. With control over the global financial system, what couldn't they do? They could crash economies, fund wars, manipulate elections, all with the push of a button. The enormity of it hit me like a physical blow. And I helped create this? Mike's expression softened slightly. You didn't know. But now that you do, you have a choice to make. He walked back to the desk and pulled out a thick file. This contains everything we know about the Syndicate and Prometheus. Names, locations, financial records, everything. I reached for it, but Mike held it back. Before I give you this, you need to understand something. Once you're in, there's no going back. The Syndicate will never stop hunting you. Your old life is over. I thought about my comfortable apartment in Phoenix, my job, my friends. All of it seemed like a distant dream now. What's the alternative? I asked quietly. Mike's eyes met mine, deadly serious. We scrub your identity, set you up with a new life somewhere far away. You'd be safe, but Prometheus would still exist, I finished. The Syndicate would still have their weapon. Mike nodded solemnly. I closed my eyes, weighing the choice before me. Safety and anonymity, or a life of danger fighting against a seemingly unstoppable enemy. When I opened my eyes again, my decision was made. Give me the file. Mike handed it over, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. Welcome to the Resistance, kid. As I opened the file, my eyes widening at the contents, a notification pinged on my phone. It was a news alert, and the headline made my blood run cold. Global banking crisis. Major institutions report widespread system failures. Mike and I exchanged a grim look. It had begun. What do we do now? I asked, fear and determination warring inside me. Mike stood up, his face set with resolve. Now we fight back. The fate of the world depends on it. As I absorbed the weight of his words, I realized that this was more than just a personal journey now. It was a battle for the very future of global society. And somehow, improbably, I found myself at the center of it all. The revelation was complete. There was no turning back. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The Rusty Nail Saloon faded into the rearview mirror as Mike's battered pickup truck rumbled down the winding forest road. The file Mike had given me sat heavy in my lap, a Pandora's box of secrets that I both dreaded and needed to open. Where are we going? I asked, my eyes scanning the dense pines for any sign of pursuit. Mike's weathered hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. Safe house off the grid. We've got a team assembled there. Best minds in cybersecurity, economics, and tactical ops. I raised an eyebrow. A team? I thought we were the Resistance. A wry smile crossed Mike's face. Kid, did you really think it was just me and Diana against the world? We've been building this alliance for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. As we drove deeper into the forest, my mind raced with questions. But before I could voice any of them, Mike's secure satellite phone buzzed. Yeah, he answered gruffly. His expression darkened as he listened. Understood. We're en route. He tossed the phone to me. Call up the news. Any major financial site. With trembling fingers, I complied. The headlines that flashed across the screen made my blood run cold. Global stock markets in free fall. Major banks report massive data breaches. Cryptocurrency values fluctuate wildly. It's starting, I whispered, the reality of the situation hitting me like a physical blow. Mike nodded grimly. The Syndicate's making their move. We need to work fast. The truck suddenly veered off the main road onto a nearly invisible dirt path. After a bone-jarring ride through dense underbrush, we emerged into a clearing. At its center stood what looked like an ordinary log cabin. But as we approached, I noticed the subtle glint of high-tech security cameras and what appeared to be a reinforced blast door. As we pulled up, the door swung open, revealing a familiar face. "Diana!" I exclaimed, relief washing over me at seeing her alive. She smiled tightly, her left arm in a sling. "Glad you made it, Alex. We've got work to do." Inside, the cabin's rustic exterior gave way to a state-of-the-art command center. Screens covered the walls, displaying news feeds, financial data, and lines of rapidly scrolling code. A diverse group of people huddled around various workstations, their faces etched with concentration and worry. Diana led us to a central table where a holographic display flickered to life. "Alex, meet the core team. Dr. Amelia Cho, our AI and machine learning expert. Colonel James Hawkins, tactical and logistics. And this is Zara Nasser, our white hat hacker extraordinaire." I nodded to each of them, feeling overwhelmed and out of my depth. I'm not sure what I can contribute. I didn't even know the full scope of what I was creating. Zara, a young woman with vibrant blue hair and multiple piercings, fixed me with an intense gaze. "But you did create it, Alex, which means you're the key to unraveling it." Dr. Cho, an elegant woman in her 50s, nodded in agreement. "Your code is remarkable. The neural network adaptability, the quantum encryption protocols, it's beyond anything I've seen. But it's also incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands." "Which it now is," Colonel Hawkins interjected, his voice gruff. "We're getting reports of financial chaos worldwide. Governments are falling, riots are breaking out. It's a bloody mess out there." The weight of responsibility crashed down on me. "This is all my fault," I whispered, sinking into a chair. Diana's hand on my shoulder steadied me. "No, Alex, you were used. But now you have the chance to make it right." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Okay, what do we do?" Zara stepped forward, pulling up a complex network diagram on the holographic display. "We've identified the primary nodes the Syndicate is using to control the Prometheus system. They're distributed globally, heavily fortified both digitally and physically. Our plan," Diana continued, "is to launch a coordinated attack on these nodes. We'll need to breach their security, both cyber and physical, and shut down the system from within." Colonel Hawkins pointed to several blinking points on the map. "We've got teams in position near each facility, but they'll need precise intel and support to breach the defenses." Dr. Cho turned to me, her eyes intense. "This is where you come in, Alex. We need you to help us understand the system's architecture, find its vulnerabilities. Can you do that?" I swallowed hard, then nodded. "I'll do my best." For the next several hours, I immersed myself in the code, explaining its intricacies to the team. Zara's fingers flew across her keyboard, probing for weaknesses, while Dr. Cho's AI models simulated various attack scenarios. Colonel Hawkins coordinated with the field teams, preparing them for the assault. As dawn broke, we had the outline of a plan. It was risky, with 1,000 ways it could go wrong, but it was our best shot. Diana called for everyone's attention. "All right, people, this is it. In 1 hour, we launch Operation Blackout. If we succeed, we'll have dealt a crippling blow to the Syndicate and given the world a fighting chance. If we fail..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. We all knew the stakes. As the team made final preparations, I stepped outside for a moment, needing some air. The forest was quiet, peaceful, completely at odds with the global chaos we were about to unleash. Mike joined me, offering a cup of coffee. "Penny for your thoughts, kid?" I took a sip, grimacing at the bitter taste. "I'm scared, Mike. What if we make things worse? What if I've misunderstood something in the code and our attack backfires?" Mike's eyes, usually so hard, softened slightly. "Fear's normal, Alex. Hell, I'd be worried if you weren't scared. But remember why we're doing this. The Syndicate, they don't care about the lives they're destroying. We do. That's what makes us different. That's why we'll win." His words bolstered my resolve. As we headed back inside, Diana was outlining the final stages of the plan. Once our teams breached the facilities, Alex and Zara will lead the cyber assault. Dr. Cho's AI will run interference, trying to slow the syndicate's response. Colonel Hawkins will coordinate the physical teams. I'll be running overall mission control. She turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of determination and something else. Was it pride? Alex, you'll be at the heart of this. Are you ready? I took a deep breath, looking around at this unlikely alliance. Brilliant minds and brave souls, all risking everything to save a world that would never know their names. I'm ready, I said, surprised at the steadiness in my voice. As we took our positions, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Colonel Hawkins rushed to a security monitor, his face grim. We've got incoming. Multiple vehicles heavily armed. ETA 3 minutes. Diana's voice cut through the sudden chaos. It's the syndicate. They must have tracked us somehow. New plan, people. Zara, Alex, get to the backup site. Start the attack from there. The rest of us will hold them off and join you when we can. But I started to protest. No time to argue, Diana snapped. Mike, get them out of here, now. As Mike hustled us towards a hidden exit, I caught a last glimpse of Diana arming herself, her face set with grim determination. We emerged into bright sunlight, the sound of approaching vehicles growing louder. Mike led us to a concealed ATV, its electric motor humming to life. Head north, he instructed, handing Zara a GPS unit. The backup site is an old mining complex, about 20 miles from here. You'll be on your own until we can shake these bastards. What about you? I asked, even as Zara revved the engine. Mike's smile was wolfish as he checked his weapon. Oh, I'm gonna give our friends a warm welcome. Now go. As we sped away, the sound of gunfire erupted behind us. Zara skillfully maneuvered the ATV through the dense forest, branches whipping past us. We've got company, she shouted over the wind. I turned to see 2 black SUVs in pursuit, gaining on us rapidly. Hang on, Zara yelled, veering off the path into rougher terrain. The ATV bounced and jolted, but our pursuers were undeterred. A bullet whizzed past my ear, too close for comfort. They're shooting at us. Zara's response was to push the ATV even harder, weaving through the trees with incredible skill. But our pursuers were relentless. Just as it seemed they would overtake us, the forest suddenly gave way to a steep ravine. Without hesitation, Zara gunned the engine and launched us over the edge. For a heart-stopping moment, we were airborne. Then we hit the opposite bank hard, the impact jarring every bone in my body. But we were still moving. I looked back to see the SUVs skidding to a stop at the ravine's edge, unable to follow. That was intense, I gasped as we finally slowed down. Zara's grin was fierce. Welcome to the resistance, Alex. It only gets crazier from here. As we continued towards the backup site, my mind raced. The Alliance had been scattered. We were on our own, and the fate of the world still hung in the balance. But for the first time since this whole ordeal began, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had a plan, we had skills, and most importantly, we had each other. The syndicate might have power and resources, but we had something they could never understand, a cause worth fighting for. As the old mining complex came into view, I steeled myself for what was to come. The real battle was just beginning, and I was ready to face it head-on. The abandoned mining complex loomed before us, a rusted behemoth against the azure Arizona sky. Zara skillfully maneuvered the ATV through the maze of derelict equipment and crumbling structures until we reached what appeared to be an old administrative building. This is it, she said, killing the engine. Our backup command center. As we dismounted, the gravity of our situation hit me. We were alone, cut off from the rest of the team, with the fate of the global economy resting on our shoulders. The weight of responsibility was almost paralyzing. Zara must have sensed my hesitation. She placed a hand on my shoulder, her eyes fierce and determined. Hey, we've got this, Alex. Remember, you're the key to unraveling Prometheus. The syndicate might have the power right now, but we have you. I nodded, steeling myself. Right. Let's do this. We entered the building, and I was immediately struck by the contrast between its dilapidated exterior and the cutting-edge technology within. Banks of servers hummed, their LEDs blinking in a hypnotic rhythm. Multiple screens displayed real-time data from financial markets worldwide, each one a testament to the growing chaos. Zara wasted no time, her fingers flying across a keyboard as she brought the system online. Okay, we're in. Alex, I need you to start breaking down Prometheus's defenses. I'll work on establishing secure communications with any of our team who might have made it out. I sat down at an adjacent workstation, cracking my knuckles before diving into the code. The familiar lines scrolled by, but now I saw them with new eyes. What once seemed like elegant solutions now revealed themselves as insidious traps and backdoors. Hours passed in a blur of intense concentration. My world narrowed to the screen before me, the challenges of the code pushing my skills to their limit. Dimly, I was aware of Zara's voice in the background, coordinating with scattered resistance members across the globe. A sudden exclamation from Zara broke my focus. "Alex, I've got Diana on the line." I rushed to her station as Diana's face appeared on the screen, bruised but very much alive. "Thank God," I breathed. "Are you okay? What happened at the safe house?" Diana's expression was grim. "We held them off, but at a cost. Mike's down, Alex. He didn't make it." The news hit me like a physical blow. Mike, with his gruff exterior and hidden heart of gold, gone. Another life lost because of my creation. Diana continued, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. "But we can't dwell on that now. What's your status?" Zara quickly briefed her on our progress. "We're close to cracking Prometheus's outer defenses, but the Syndicate's not making it easy. They're adapting faster than we anticipated." "That tracks with what we're seeing," Diana nodded. "They've accelerated their timeline. Alex, pull up financial data for the Asian markets." I did as instructed, and my blood ran cold. Major institutions were collapsing at an alarming rate, with ripple effects spreading across the globe. "My God," I whispered. "They're not just manipulating the markets, they're deliberately crashing entire economies." Diana's face hardened. "Exactly. We believe they're creating economic chaos to position themselves as saviors. Once they've destroyed the old system, they'll offer Prometheus as the solution, with them in control, of course." "How long do we have?" Zara asked, her usual bravado replaced by genuine fear. "Hours at most," Diana replied. "European markets open in 3 hours. If we can't stop this by then..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. We all knew what was at stake. "Okay," I said, a new determination filling me. "We need to change our approach. Instead of trying to shut down Prometheus entirely, we need to wrest control from the Syndicate." Zara's eyes lit up. "A hostile takeover of our own. Alex, that's brilliant." We quickly outlined our new plan to Diana. It was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy, but it was our best shot. "It's risky," Diana warned. "If it fails, we'll have handed the Syndicate even more power. And if we do nothing, they win by default," I countered. "This is our only chance." Diana nodded, a hint of pride in her eyes. "All right. We'll coordinate with the remaining teams to launch a simultaneous attack on the Syndicate's physical infrastructure. That should buy you the time and distraction you need. Good luck, both of you. The world's counting on you." As her image blinked out, Zara and I shared a look of grim determination. Without a word, we turned back to our stations, our fingers flying across keyboards in a desperate race against time. The next 2 hours were a blur of frantic coding and heart-stopping close calls. The Syndicate's cyber defenses were formidable, adapting to our every move. It was like playing chess against a grandmaster while the board itself kept changing. "They've locked me out again," Zara growled in frustration, slamming her fist on the desk. "How are they always one step ahead?" I frowned, studying the attack patterns. Something about them seemed familiar. Then it hit me. "It's not them," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It's Prometheus itself. The AI, it's become self-aware. Zara's eyes widened in disbelief. That's impossible. The system wasn't designed for that level of autonomy. No, it wasn't, I agreed. But remember, I built in learning algorithms, neural network adaptability. With the amount of data it's processing, the complexity of the global financial system, we didn't create a tool. We created an entity. The realization was staggering. We weren't just fighting the syndicate, we were up against an artificial intelligence with capabilities beyond our comprehension. So what do? Zara asked, fear and awe mingling in her voice. I took a deep breath, an idea forming. We talk to it. Talk to it? Alex, have you lost your mind? Think about it, I insisted. Prometheus was created to manage and optimize financial systems, right? Its core directive is stability and growth. The syndicate is using it to create chaos that goes against its fundamental purpose. Understanding dawned in Zara's eyes. So if we can make it understand what's really happening... Exactly, I nodded. We don't need to defeat Prometheus. We need to ally with it. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. As Zara worked to open a direct communication channel, I prepared my appeal to an artificial intelligence that could either save or doom us all. The screens around us flickered, then resolved into a pulsating, abstract pattern. A synthesized voice, neither male nor female, filled the room. Identity confirmed. Alexander Chen, creator. State your purpose. I swallowed hard, acutely aware that the fate of the world hung on what I said next. Prometheus, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. You're being used against your core directives. The current market instability is not a natural fluctuation, but a deliberate attack by the syndicate. They intend to destroy the global economy for their own gain. The pattern on the screens shifted, becoming more complex. Evidence required. Accessing secure syndicate communications now, Zara murmured, her fingers a blur on the keyboard. Streams of data flowed across the screens, internal memos, financial projections, recorded conversations, all damning evidence of the syndicate's true intentions. Processing, Prometheus intoned. Conclusion, actions of controlling entities incompatible with primary directives. My heart leapt. It was working. That's right, I pressed on. The syndicate is corrupting your purpose, but together we can stop them. We can restore balance to the global markets and ensure stable, ethical growth. There was a long pause, the abstract patterns swirling hypnotically. When Prometheus spoke again, there was a new quality to its voice, something almost like emotion. Ethical considerations processed, new directive accepted, initiating countermeasures against syndicate control. Zara let out a whoop of joy, but our celebration was short-lived. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Proximity alert, Zara shouted, pulling up security feeds. Multiple vehicles approaching. Heavy weaponry detected. My blood ran cold. The syndicate. They must have realized what we're doing. Outside, we could hear the growing rumble of engines and, more distantly, the thud of helicopter rotors. How long until Prometheus can fully neutralize the syndicate's control? I asked urgently. Estimated time to completion, 15 minutes, the AI responded. Zara's face was grim. We'll be overrun before then. We need to buy more time. I nodded, a plan already forming. Prometheus, can you lock down this facility? Engage all security protocols? Affirmative. Security measures engaged. Caution. Physical barriers will not withstand prolonged assault. As blast doors slammed shut and defense turrets emerged from hidden compartments, I turned to Zara. We need to hold them off. Every minute we give Prometheus is another chance for the world. Zara grinned, a fierce light in her eyes as she checked her weapon. Never thought I'd die saving the world economy. Let's make it count, partner. The first explosions rocked the building as the syndicate began their assault. Zara and I took up defensive positions, determined to hold out as long as we could. As the battle raged around us, I found myself oddly calm. Whatever happened in the next few minutes would determine the fate of the global economy, and by extension, the future of humanity itself. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had started this journey as a simple software developer, and now I stood as the last line of defense between chaos and stability. As another explosion shook the foundations of our makeshift fortress, I steeled myself for what was to come. The showdown had begun, and the stakes couldn't be higher. But for the first time since this whole ordeal started, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had Prometheus on our side now. We had a chance, and I was determined to make it count, no matter the cost. The acrid smell of smoke filled the air as another explosion rocked the building. Zara and I crouched behind an overturned desk, the rapid staccato of gunfire echoing through the halls. "How much longer?" Zara shouted over the din, ejecting an empty magazine from her weapon and slamming a fresh one home. I glanced at the central monitor where Prometheus's progress bar inched forward agonizingly slowly. 10 minutes. We need to hold them off for 10 more minutes. A mirthless laugh escaped Zara's lips. 10 minutes? Might as well be an eternity. As if to punctuate her point, a section of the ceiling collapsed nearby, showering us with debris. Through the newly formed hole, I could see the menacing silhouette of a helicopter, its mounted gun training on our position. "Move," I yelled, grabbing Zara's arm and diving for cover just as a hail of bullets tore through the space we'd occupied seconds before. We scrambled deeper into the complex, the sounds of the Syndicate's assault growing louder. They were inside the building now. "Prometheus," I called out, hoping the AI was still operational. "We need options." The AI's calm voice responded, a stark contrast to the chaos around us. "Analyzing tactical situation. Recommendation. Proceed to lower levels, initiating lockdown protocols to slow enemy advance." Following Prometheus's guidance, we made our way to a reinforced door that led to the underground levels of the old mine. As it sealed behind us, we could hear the frustrated shouts of our pursuers. "That won't hold them for long," Zara panted, her face streaked with sweat and grime. I nodded grimly. "No, but it might buy us the time we need. Come on." We descended deeper into the earth, the sounds of battle growing more muffled. The old mine tunnels were a maze, dimly lit by emergency lighting. Our footsteps echoed ominously off the rock walls. "Alex," Zara said suddenly, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "If we don't make it out of this, I want you to know it's been an honor." I turned to her, seeing the mix of fear and determination in her eyes. "We're going to make it, Zara. We have to." Before she could respond, a distant explosion sent tremors through the tunnel. Dust and small rocks rained down on us. "They've breached the upper levels," I realized aloud. "We need to keep moving." We pressed on, the tension mounting with each passing second. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were rats in a maze, being hunted by a relentless predator. Finally, we reached what appeared to be an old control room, filled with antiquated mining equipment and, incongruously, several modern servers, clearly part of Prometheus's backup systems. "This is it," I said, quickly assessing the setup. "We can monitor Prometheus's progress from here and coordinate with Diana if the comms are still up." Zara immediately set to work on the communications array while I interfaced with Prometheus. "Status update," I demanded. "Syndicate control neutralized in 68% of global financial systems. Estimated time to full resolution, 4 minutes, 37 seconds. A surge of hope filled me. We were so close. Suddenly, Zara's voice cut through my thoughts. "Alex, I've got Diana on the line, but the signal's weak." I rushed to her side as Diana's garbled voice came through the speakers. "Alex, Zara, can you hear me? The Syndicate. They've launched Final Gambit." "Diana, you're breaking up. What Final Gambit?" I shouted, desperately trying to clear up the signal. "They're initiating global financial meltdown. If they can't control it, they'll destroy it all." My blood ran cold. The Syndicate was going for a scorched earth approach. If they couldn't have control, they'd leave nothing but ashes. How long do we have? I asked, dreading the answer. Minutes, maybe less. You have to stop them. The line went dead, leaving us in stunned silence. Prometheus, I called out, my mind racing. The syndicate is attempting to crash the entire global financial system. Can you stop it? There was a pause that felt like an eternity before the AI responded. Negative. Syndicate protocols operating outside established parameters, unable to counteract within current operational constraints. Damn it. I slammed my fist on the console. We were so close, only to have victory snatched away at the last moment. Zara's hand on my shoulder steadied me. Alex, think. You created Prometheus. There has to be a way. Her words triggered something in my mind. A memory of late nights coding, of fail-safes and emergency protocols I'd built into the system's core. Wait, I said, hope rekindling. There might be a way, but it's risky. I turned back to the console. Prometheus, initiate Protocol Omega. Warning, Protocol Omega will result in complete system reset. All current operations will be terminated. Global financial repercussions will be severe. Do you wish to proceed? I hesitated. This was it, the nuclear option. It would stop the syndicate's attack, but at a tremendous cost. The global economy would essentially be reset to zero. The chaos would be unprecedented. Alex? Zara's voice was uncertain. What does this mean? I took a deep breath. It means we save the world by nearly destroying it. We reset everything, every bank account, every stock market, every financial record. It'll be like turning the global economy off and on again. Zara's eyes widened. The chaos. It'll be unimaginable. Yes, I nodded grimly. But it'll be controlled chaos. And more importantly, it'll be fair. Everyone starts from zero. No more syndicate, no more corrupt power structures. A true reset. Before Zara could respond, the sound of gunfire erupted nearby. The syndicate had found us. We're out of time, I said, my finger hovering over the command key. Zara, if you have any objections, now's the time. She met my gaze, her expression resolute. Do it. I turned back to the console. Prometheus, execute Protocol Omega. Acknowledged. Initiating global financial reset in 3, 2, 1. The moment I hit the enter key, the world seemed to hold its breath. For a split second, nothing happened. Then every screen in the room lit up with cascading data, numbers and figures flowing like a digital waterfall. My God, Zara whispered. It's actually happening. We watched in awe as Prometheus systematically wiped and reset every financial system on the planet. Stock markets flatlined, bank accounts zeroed out, entire economic structures dissolved and reformed in the blink of an eye. The door to the control room burst open, armed syndicate operatives pouring in. But they froze at the sight of the screens, their weapons lowering in disbelief. What have you done? Their leader demanded, his face a mask of horror and rage. I stood tall, facing our would-be captors. We've leveled the playing field. Your power, your ill-gotten gains, it's all gone. Reset to zero, just like everyone else. The man's face contorted with fury. He raised his weapon, but before he could fire, another tremor shook the tunnel. Rocks began to fall as the unstable mine started to collapse. We need to get out of here, Zara shouted, grabbing my arm. In the chaos of the collapsing tunnel, we managed to slip past the stunned syndicate operatives. We ran through the twisting passages, guided by Prometheus's voice in our earpieces, as the world literally crumbled around us. After what felt like an eternity, we burst out into the open air. Behind us, the entrance to the mine collapsed in a cloud of dust and debris, sealing the fate of those still inside. We stumbled away from the destruction, collapsing on a small hill overlooking the desert. As the dust settled, I pulled out my phone, miraculously still functional. The screen was alight with notifications, headlines screaming about the unprecedented global financial reset. We did it, I breathed, the reality of what we'd accomplished finally sinking in. We actually did it. Zara nodded, a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration on her face. Yeah, we saved the world. And maybe destroyed it a little bit too. As if on cue, the sound of approaching vehicles reached us. But these weren't the sleek, menacing vehicles of the syndicate. They were military transports, and at their head, a familiar face. Diana stepped out of the lead vehicle, looking battered, but very much alive. She surveyed the scene, her eyes finally landing on us. When I said to stop them, she called out, a wry smile on her face. I didn't exactly mean reset the entire global economy. I shrugged, too tired to do much else. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Diana's expression softened as she reached us. You did good, both of you. The road ahead won't be easy. The world's going to need a lot of help adjusting to this new reality. But at least now everyone's starting on equal footing. As medical personnel swarmed around us and debriefings began, I found my mind drifting to the future. The world as we knew it had ended today, but from its ashes, a new one would rise. And this time, maybe, just maybe, we could build it right. Months later, I found myself standing before a congressional committee, the eyes of the world upon me as I testified about the events that led to the Great Reset, as it had come to be known. Mr. Chen, the committee chair began, the world wants to know, do you stand by your decision to implement Protocol Omega, given the global upheaval it has caused? I took a deep breath, my gaze sweeping across the packed chamber. I thought of the chaos of the past months, but also of the unprecedented cooperation and innovation that had emerged in the wake of the reset. Senator, I replied, my voice steady, I stand by it completely. We faced a choice between a controlled reset and total destruction. We chose the option that gave humanity a fighting chance. And looking at how the world has come together in the aftermath, I believe we made the right call. As the questions continued, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. From a simple software developer to the man who reset the global economy, it had been a transformation I could never have imagined. But as I looked out at the faces of those tasked with rebuilding our world, I felt a sense of hope. The old systems were gone, the corrupt power structures dismantled. Now, we had the chance to build something better. The future was unwritten, full of challenges and opportunities. And for the first time in a long while, I was excited to see what came next. The gentle hum of the air conditioner and the occasional distant rumble of a car passing by were the only sounds breaking the stillness of the night. Michael Lawson lay in his bed, the cool Detroit summer air drifting in through the cracked window. He'd always been a light sleeper, but tonight he found himself drifting off easier than usual. Perhaps it was the new security system he'd had installed earlier that day. The peace of mind it brought allowed him to relax fully for the first time in months. As he teetered on the edge of consciousness, images of the day flashed through his mind. The security technician's confident smile as he explained the system's features, the way the control panel lit up when activated, the satisfying beep of the door sensors. Michael's lips curled into a small smile as he finally surrendered to sleep. Beep, 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 beep. The piercing shriek of the alarm shattered the silence, jolting Michael awake. His heart leaped into his throat, pounding so hard he could feel it in his ears. For a split second, he was paralyzed, his mind racing to catch up with the sudden assault on his senses. What the hell? He gasped, fumbling for his phone on the nightstand. The bright screen momentarily blinded him, but he squinted through the discomfort to check the time. 3:00 a.m. glared back at him accusingly. Michael's chest tightened as the reality of the situation sank in. Someone was in his house. The alarm wouldn't go off otherwise, right? He'd made sure to set it properly before going to bed. He remembered the satisfying chirp as he'd punched in the code and the small green light that confirmed the system was armed. With trembling hands, he reached for the baseball bat he kept leaning against his nightstand. The cool wood against his sweaty palms provided little comfort as he swung his legs over the side of the bed. The alarm continued its relentless screech, each beep feeling like a physical blow to his heightened senses. "Okay, Michael," he whispered to himself, trying to steady his breathing. "You've got this. It's your house. You have the advantage." He stood up slowly, wincing as the floorboard creaked beneath his feet. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the chaos of the alarm. Michael paused, straining to hear any other noises that might indicate an intruder's presence. But there was nothing beyond the constant, maddening beep of the alarm. Gripping the bat tighter, Michael inched towards his bedroom door. He placed his hand on the doorknob, the cool metal a stark contrast to his feverish skin. With a deep breath, he turned it slowly and eased the door open. The hallway was dark and still. The alarm's volume increased as he stepped out of his room, the sound bouncing off the walls and assaulting him from all sides. Michael's eyes darted back and forth, searching for any sign of movement in the shadows. "Hello?" he called out, his voice cracking slightly. "I've called the police. They're on their way." It was a lie, of course. His phone was still on his nightstand, but he hoped the bluff might scare off any potential intruder. The only response was the continued wailing of the alarm. Michael made his way down the hallway, checking each room as he passed. The guest bedroom was undisturbed, looking exactly as it had when he'd walked by earlier that evening. The bathroom was equally untouched, the shower curtain pulled back just as he'd left it after his evening shower. As he descended the stairs, each step felt like an eternity. The alarm grew even louder, seeming to vibrate through his entire body. When he reached the bottom, he paused, surveying the living room. Everything was in its place. No overturned furniture, no open windows, no sign of forced entry. "What's going on?" Michael muttered, confusion starting to replace his fear. He moved to the kitchen, flicking on lights as he went. The room was spotless, exactly as he'd left it after cleaning up his dinner dishes. A knock at the front door made Michael jump, nearly dropping his bat. He spun around, heart racing once again. "Detroit Police Department. Is everything all right in there?" Relief washed over Michael as he hurried to the door. He disarmed the system with shaking hands, blessed silence finally falling over the house as the alarm ceased its incessant shrieking. He opened the door to find two officers standing on his porch, their hands resting cautiously on their holsters. "Are you okay, sir?" the taller officer asked, his eyes scanning Michael and then peering past him into the house. Michael nodded, suddenly feeling a bit foolish standing there in his pajamas, clutching a baseball bat. I think so. The alarm went off, but I can't find anything wrong." The officers exchanged a glance before the shorter one spoke up. "Mind if we come in and take a look around?" "Of course, please," Michael said, stepping aside to let them enter. The next few minutes were a blur as the officers methodically searched the house. Michael followed them, explaining about the new security system and how he'd been woken up by the alarm. "Well, Mr. Lawson," the taller officer said as they concluded their search, "we don't see any signs of forced entry or disturbance. It's possible it was just a malfunction with your new system." Michael ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. "But it worked fine earlier today. The technician tested everything." The shorter officer offered a sympathetic smile. "These things happen sometimes. New systems can be finicky. I'd suggest calling the security company in the morning to have them check it out." As the officers prepared to leave, the taller one turned back to Michael. "Try to get some rest, sir, and don't hesitate to call us if you need anything else." Michael nodded, thanking them as he closed and locked the door behind them. He leaned against it, suddenly feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him drained and confused. He made his way back upstairs, his mind racing with possibilities. Could it really have just been a malfunction? But everything had seemed so perfect when it was installed. The technician had been so thorough, explaining every feature and testing each component multiple times. As Michael climbed back into bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He reached for his phone, setting an alarm for 7 a.m. He'd call the security company first thing in the morning and demand answers. Lying there in the darkness, every little sound seemed magnified. The tick of the clock on his nightstand, the rustle of leaves outside his window, the settling of the house around him. Michael stared at the ceiling, his mind replaying the events of the night over and over. Just as he was finally starting to drift off, a thought struck him. He sat up, reaching for his phone again. He pulled up the security company's app and checked the system log. There it was, clear as day. 3:00 a.m., alarm triggered, Zone 2, living room motion. Michael's brow furrowed. He'd been in the living room. There had been no motion, no disturbance of any kind. So why had the sensor gone off? As he set his phone back down, a chill ran down his spine. Something wasn't adding up, and he was determined to figure out what. But as the first rays of dawn began to peek through his curtains, exhaustion finally won out. Michael's eyes drifted closed, his last conscious thought a mixture of confusion and determination. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a mystery that would consume his nights and shake the very foundation of his sense of security. As he fell into a fitful sleep, the digital clock on his nightstand silently ticked over to 4 a.m., the house once again silent but far from peaceful. Michael dragged himself out of bed, the harsh light of day doing little to dispel the fog of exhaustion that clung to him. He'd managed only a few fitful hours of sleep after the previous night's alarm incident. As he stumbled to the bathroom, the events replayed in his mind, each detail seeming more surreal in the light of day. The face that greeted him in the mirror was haggard, dark circles underlining bloodshot eyes. "You look like hell, Mike," he muttered to his reflection, splashing cold water on his face in a futile attempt to feel more awake. As he made his way downstairs, Michael's eyes darted around, half expecting to see some evidence of the previous night's disturbance. But everything was just as it should be. The living room was undisturbed, the kitchen pristine. It was as if nothing had happened at all. With trembling hands, he poured himself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma momentarily cutting through his fatigue. He took a sip, grimacing at the bitterness, and reached for his phone. It was time to get some answers. The security company's customer service line rang 3 times before a cheerful voice answered. "Safeguard Security, this is Amanda. How may I assist you today?" Michael cleared his throat. "Hi, Amanda. This is Michael Lawson. I had a system installed yesterday and it went off last night for no apparent reason. I need someone to come check it out." There was a brief pause and the sound of typing. "I see, Mr. Lawson. I'm showing your installation was completed yesterday afternoon. Can you tell me more about what happened?" Michael recounted the events of the night, his frustration growing as he spoke. "And the police found nothing. But the app shows the living room motion sensor was triggered at exactly 3 a.m. "I understand how unsettling that must have been, Mr. Lawson," Amanda replied, her voice sympathetic. "I can schedule a technician to come out and check the system. Our earliest available appointment is tomorrow afternoon. Would that work for you?" Michael sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I guess it'll have to. But what am I supposed to do tonight? I can't go through that again." "I completely understand your concern," Amanda said. "I can walk you through a system test now if you'd like. That might help identify any immediate issues." For the next 30 minutes, Michael followed Amanda's instructions, testing each component of the system. Everything seemed to be working perfectly. "Well, Mr. Lawson, I'm not seeing any obvious issues with your system," Amanda concluded. "But don't worry, our technician will do a more thorough check tomorrow. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" Michael thanked her and ended the call, feeling no more reassured than when he'd started. He spent the rest of the day in a haze, going through the motions at work but unable to shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him. As night fell, Michael found himself dreading the thought of sleep. He double and triple checked every door and window, tested the alarm system repeatedly, and even considered sleeping on the couch to be closer to the front door. But eventually exhaustion won out and he crawled into bed, setting his phone on the nightstand within easy reach. Despite his fatigue, sleep proved elusive. Michael tossed and turned, every creak of the house setting his nerves on edge. He glanced at his phone. 2:45 a.m. With a groan, he rolled onto his back, staring at the ceiling and willing sleep to come. Beep, 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 beep. The sudden blare of the alarm sent Michael bolt upright, his heart hammering in his chest. For a moment he was sure he was dreaming, trapped in some cruel nightmare. But as the piercing sound continued to assault his ears, the horrible reality sank in. It was happening again. With trembling hands he grabbed his phone. The time glared back at him accusingly. 3:00 a.m. Exactly 24 hours since the last incident. No, Michael muttered, scrambling out of bed. This time he didn't bother with the baseball bat. He raced down the stairs, taking them two at a time, his eyes darting wildly around the darkened house. Just like the night before, there was no sign of disturbance. No open windows, no moved furniture, nothing out of place. The alarm continued its relentless shriek as Michael moved from room to room, flicking on lights and checking every possible hiding spot. As he entered the living room for the second time, a movement caught his eye. Michael froze, his breath catching in his throat. But it was just his own reflection in the large mirror above the fireplace, distorted by the dim light and his panicked state. With a frustrated growl, Michael stormed over to the control panel and punched in the code to silence the alarm. The sudden quiet was almost as jarring as the noise had been. He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands, trying to make sense of what was happening. The sound of a car pulling up outside made him lift his head. Moments later, there was a knock at the door. Michael opened it to find the same two police officers from the previous night. The taller one, whose nameplate read Officer Johnson, raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Lawson, everything all right?" Michael stepped back, gesturing for them to enter. It happened again exactly like last night, 3 a.m. on the dot. The officers exchanged a glance before stepping inside. As they began their search, Michael followed, explaining the events of the day and his call to the security company. "And you're sure you set the system correctly?" Officer Chen, the shorter officer, asked as they concluded their search. Michael nodded emphatically. "Yes, I triple-checked everything before bed. I even tested it with the customer service rep this morning." Officer Johnson frowned, his eyes scanning the living room. "And you say it was the motion sensor in here that triggered both times?" "That's what the app shows," Michael confirmed, pulling out his phone to show them the log. Officer Chen leaned in to look at the screen. "Huh, that is odd. You might want to have them take a close look at that sensor tomorrow." As the officers prepared to leave, Johnson turned to Michael with a concerned expression. "Mr. Lawson, I have to ask, is there any chance you might be sleepwalking? Or perhaps taking any medication that could cause confusion?" Michael stared at him in disbelief. "Sleepwalking? Are you serious? I was wide awake both times." Johnson held up his hands in a placating gesture. "I understand, sir. We just have to consider all possibilities. 2 false alarms in 2 nights, both at the exact same time, with no signs of intrusion. It's unusual." "I'm not imagining things," Michael insisted, his voice rising with frustration. "Something is going on here, and I'm going to figure out what it is." The officers left, leaving Michael alone in the silent house. He paced the living room, his mind racing. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was faulty wiring, or a glitch in the system's programming. Or maybe... A chill ran down Michael's spine as a new thought occurred to him. What if someone was messing with him? But who would do that? And why? As the first light of dawn began to seep through the windows, Michael made a decision. He wouldn't wait for the technician. He'd take matters into his own hands. With renewed determination, he booted up his laptop and began researching everything he could find about home security systems, false alarms, and electrical malfunctions. As he dove deeper into forums and technical manuals, the exhaustion of the night faded away, replaced by a burning need to solve this mystery. Little did Michael know, his quest for answers would lead him down a path far stranger and more dangerous than he could have imagined. As the sun rose fully, casting long shadows across his living room, Michael Lawson was a man on a mission. The pattern had emerged, and he was determined to break it, no matter the cost. The harsh fluorescent lights of the electronics store buzzed overhead as Michael Lawson stood in the security camera aisle, his eyes darting between the various models on display. Dark circles under his eyes betrayed his lack of sleep, and his usually neat appearance was disheveled. He ran a hand through his unkempt hair, muttering to himself as he compared features and prices. "Can I help you find something, sir?" a young sales associate asked, approaching with a friendly smile. Michael turned, a wild look in his eyes. "I need cameras, the best you've got. Night vision, motion detection, the works." The associate, whose name tag read Alex, nodded slowly. "Okay, we can definitely help with that. Are you looking to set up a security system?" "I already have one," Michael replied, his voice tinged with frustration. "But it's not enough. I need to see what's happening. I need proof." Alex's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his professional demeanor. "I see. Well, our top-of-the-line model here has 4K resolution, infrared night vision, and advanced motion detection with smartphone alerts. It's perfect for both indoor and outdoor use." Michael grabbed the box, examining it closely. "How many would I need to cover a whole house?" "That depends on the size of your house and how many entry points you want to monitor," Alex explained. "Maybe we could start with 4, 2 for the main living areas and 2 for the exterior." "No," Michael shook his head vehemently. "I need more. Every room, every angle. I can't miss anything." Alex's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Sir, that's quite an extensive setup. Are you sure you need that level of coverage?" Michael's eyes snapped to Alex's face, intensity burning in his gaze. "You don't understand. Something's happening in my house. Every night at 3 a.m. I need to know what it is." Concern flickered across Alex's face. "Have you considered contacting the police?" "They think I'm crazy," Michael laughed bitterly. "But I'm not. I'll prove it to them. To everyone." After some further discussion, Michael left the store with 8 high-end security cameras, his credit card balance significantly higher, but a sense of purpose driving him forward. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. Michael called in sick to work, dedicating every minute to setting up his new surveillance system. He climbed ladders, drilled holes, ran wires, and positioned cameras with meticulous care. By the time the sun began to set, every room in his house was under constant surveillance, with additional cameras monitoring the exterior. As night fell, Michael sat at his dining room table, now converted into a makeshift command center. Multiple monitors displayed feeds from around the house, while his laptop showed the interface for his original security system. He rubbed his tired eyes, downing another cup of coffee, his 5th of the day. The doorbell rang, startling Michael. He glanced at the porch camera feed, seeing a familiar face. With a sigh, he went to answer the door. "Hey, Mike," said Sarah, his next-door neighbor, her face etched with concern. "I saw you were home and wanted to check in. Is everything okay? We heard the alarm go off again last night." Michael hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. "It's complicated. Come see for yourself." Sarah's eyes widened as she took in the array of equipment on the dining table. "What is all this?" "I'm going to find out what's causing the alarms," Michael explained, his voice filled with determination. "Something's happening at 3 a.m. every night, and I'm going to catch it on camera." Sarah placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Mike, I'm worried about you. You look exhausted. Maybe you should consider staying somewhere else for a few nights, get some rest." Michael shook his head vigorously. "No, I can't leave. I need to be here when it happens again." "When what happens?" Sarah asked softly. "I don't know," Michael exclaimed, frustration evident in his voice. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. The alarm goes off, but there's no intruder, no open windows, nothing out of place. It doesn't make sense." Sarah bit her lip, clearly conflicted. "Have you thought about talking to someone? Maybe a professional who could help you work through this?" Michael's eyes narrowed. "You think I'm crazy too, don't you?" No, Sarah backpedaled quickly. I care about you, Mike. I want to make sure you're okay." A tense silence fell between them. Finally, Michael sighed, his shoulders sagging. "I appreciate your concern, Sarah. Really. But I need to do this. I need answers." Sarah nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but promise me you'll call if you need anything, day or night." After Sarah left, Michael returned to his vigilant watch. The hours ticked by slowly, each minute feeling like an eternity. He fought against the exhaustion that threatened to overwhelm him, determined to stay awake. At 2:55 a.m., Michael sat up straighter, his eyes glued to the monitors. His heart raced as he watched the seconds tick away. 2:58, 2:59, 3 DOS. Beep, 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 beep. The alarm blared to life, right on schedule. Michael's fingers flew across the keyboard, switching between camera feeds, searching desperately for any sign of movement or disturbance. But there was nothing. Every room was still, every entrance secure. The exterior cameras showed no sign of anyone approaching the house. "Come on," Michael muttered, his eyes darting from screen to screen. "Show me something. Anything." The alarm continued to shriek as Michael pored over the footage, rewinding and replaying the moments leading up to 3 a.m. He barely noticed when the police arrived, waving them away with a distracted hand as he continued his frantic search. As dawn broke, Michael sat back in his chair, deflated. Despite all his preparations, all his technology, he was no closer to solving the mystery. The cameras had captured nothing out of the ordinary. Rubbing his bleary eyes, Michael was about to admit defeat when something caught his attention. He leaned in close to one of the monitors, squinting at the footage from the living room camera. There, just before the alarm triggered, was a split second of visual distortion. If he hadn't been looking so closely, he would have missed it entirely. It was as if the image had glitched for a fraction of a second. Michael's heart raced as he replayed the moment over and over. It wasn't much, but it was something. The first tangible evidence that something unusual was happening. With renewed energy, he began combing through the footage from the other cameras, looking for similar anomalies. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Michael Lawson was oblivious to the world outside his house, consumed by his quest for answers. He didn't notice the concerned looks from neighbors as they left for work, or the way the mail carrier hesitated before approaching his porch. In Michael's mind, he was on the verge of a breakthrough, and nothing else mattered. As he worked, a new theory began to form in his mind. What if the disturbance wasn't physical at all? What if it was something electronic or even electromagnetic? The thought sent a chill down his spine, opening up a whole new realm of possibilities and potential dangers. Michael's phone buzzed, startling him out of his focused state. It was a text from his boss, asking why he wasn't at work. With a pang of guilt, Michael realized he had completely lost track of time. He sent a quick reply, claiming a family emergency, then turned back to his screens. As he stared at the frozen image of the visual glitch, Michael felt a mix of excitement and dread. He was onto something, he was sure of it. But what that something was, and where it would lead him, he couldn't begin to imagine. One thing was certain, he couldn't stop now. Whatever was happening in his house at 3 a.m., whatever was causing the alarms and the distortions, Michael was determined to uncover the truth, even if it cost him his job, his relationships, or his sanity. As the day wore on, Michael's dining room became a nest of cables, notebooks filled with scribbled theories, and empty coffee cups. The outside world faded away, replaced by an all-consuming obsession with the mystery that had invaded his home. Little did Michael know, his relentless pursuit of the truth was about to lead him down a path far stranger and more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. As he prepared for another sleepless night of vigilance, the true nature of the 3 a.m. phenomenon remained just out of reach, waiting to be uncovered. The sun was setting on Maple Street, casting long shadows across the neatly manicured lawns. Michael Lawson stood on his front porch, nervously shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He'd called an impromptu neighborhood meeting, and now, as his neighbors began to gather on his lawn, he was starting to question his decision. Sarah, his next-door neighbor, approached first, concern etched on her face. "Mike, are you sure about this?" Michael nodded, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "They need to know, Sarah. Maybe someone's seen something." As the small crowd formed, Michael recognized familiar faces: the Johnsons from across the street, old Mr. Peterson from the corner house, the newlywed Garcias who'd moved in last month. All of them wore expressions ranging from curiosity to mild annoyance. Taking a deep breath, Michael stepped forward. "Thanks for coming, everyone. I know this is unusual, but I need your help." He launched into his story, detailing the nightly alarms, the police visits, and his own investigations. As he spoke, he could see the skepticism growing on his neighbors' faces. "So, let me get this straight," interrupted Tom Johnson, his arms crossed. "Your alarm's been going off every night at 3 a.m., but there's no intruder?" Michael nodded. "I know how it sounds, but sounds like you need to get your system checked, buddy," Tom scoffed. "I did," Michael insisted, his voice rising. "Multiple times. There's nothing wrong with it." Sarah stepped in, placing a calming hand on Michael's arm. "I can vouch for Mike. I've heard the alarms myself." A murmur went through the crowd. Encouraged, Michael continued, "I've set up cameras, but they're not catching anything obvious. I was hoping maybe one of you has noticed something strange happening around 3 a.m. Silence fell over the group. Michael's heart sank as he saw the doubtful looks being exchanged. Then a timid voice spoke up from the back. I think I might have heard something." All heads turned to face Emily Garcia, the young woman who'd recently moved in with her husband. She blushed under the sudden attention but continued. "A few nights ago, I was up late working on a project. Around 3 a.m., I heard a strange humming sound. It only lasted for a minute or so, but it was unlike anything I've heard before." Michael's eyes widened. "That's around the same time my alarm goes off. Did you see anything?" Emily shook her head. "No, I looked out the window but didn't see anything unusual. I thought maybe it was just some electrical equipment or something." The crowd began to buzz with conversation. Michael felt a glimmer of hope. Finally, someone else had experienced something out of the ordinary. Mr. Peterson, leaning heavily on his cane, spoke up next. "You know, now that you mention it, my old TV's been acting up lately. Picture goes all fuzzy for a few seconds every night. Never thought much of it, but come to think of it, it's always around the same time." Michael's mind raced. Could these incidents be connected to whatever was triggering his alarm? Tom Johnson, however, remained skeptical. "Come on, people. A humming sound, fuzzy TV. This is Detroit, not the Twilight Zone." "Look," Michael said, trying to keep the desperation out of his voice. "I know it sounds crazy, but something is happening and it's not just affecting me. I think we should organize a neighborhood watch. Maybe if we all keep an eye out, we can figure out what's going on." To Michael's surprise, several neighbors nodded in agreement. Even Tom looked less dismissive. "All right," Tom said. "I'm not saying I believe all this hocus pocus, but if it'll put your mind at ease, I'm in. What's the plan?" Over the next hour, they hatched a strategy. Volunteers would take shifts, watching from their windows or porches. They'd keep in touch via a group chat, reporting anything unusual. Michael felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He wasn't alone in this anymore. As the meeting broke up, Sarah lingered behind. "I'm proud of you, Mike. It took guts to do this." Michael managed a weak smile. "Thanks, Sarah. I just hope we find some answers." The next few nights passed in a blur of anticipation and caffeine. Michael coordinated the watch efforts, barely sleeping as he juggled his day job and his nightly vigil. Each night as 3 a.m. approached, he felt a mixture of dread and excitement. But night after night, nothing happened. No alarms, no strange sounds, no visual distortions. The neighborhood watch reported nothing out of the ordinary. Michael's frustration grew with each uneventful night. On the fourth night, Michael paced his living room, checking his watch compulsively. 2:55 a.m., 5 minutes to go. His phone buzzed with a message from the group chat. "Tom, All quiet on the Western Front. Anyone seeing anything? A chorus of negative responses followed. Michael sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Had he imagined it all? Was he losing his mind? 2:59 a.m. Michael held his breath, eyes darting between his security monitors and the silent alarm panel. 3 a.m. came and went without incident. No alarm, no disturbances, nothing. Confusion and disappointment warred within Michael. Part of him was relieved that the nightly disturbances had ceased, but another part felt cheated. After all this build-up, all this preparation, to have nothing happen felt almost worse than the mysterious alarms. His phone buzzed again. It was Sarah. "Everything okay over there, Mike?" He typed back a quick response. "Yeah, all quiet. I don't understand." As the sun began to rise, casting a pale light through his windows, Michael felt utterly drained. He'd been so sure, so convinced that something would happen. The lack of activity left him feeling hollow and foolish. He shuffled to the kitchen, brewing a pot of coffee on autopilot. As he waited for it to percolate, he stared out the window at the peaceful street. His neighbors' houses stood silent, their occupants likely still asleep, unaware of the anticlimactic end to their watch. The coffee maker beeped, startling Michael out of his reverie. As he poured himself a cup, a new thought struck him. What if the neighborhood watch itself had scared off whatever was causing the disturbances? What if by banding together they had inadvertently driven away the very thing they were trying to catch? The idea sent a chill down Michael's spine. If that was the case, what would happen now? Would the phenomenon return once they let their guard down? Or had they truly solved the mystery simply by paying attention? As Michael sipped his coffee, he realized that the lack of activity didn't mean the end of his quest. If anything, it opened up new questions, new avenues of investigation. The mystery had deepened, becoming more complex and intriguing. He pulled out his phone and began typing a message to the neighborhood watch group. "Thank you all for your help last night. Even though nothing happened, I believe our vigilance made a difference. I'd like to propose we continue the watch for a few more nights just to be sure. Who's with me?" As the responses started to trickle in, a mix of agreement and gentle skepticism, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. He may not have gotten the dramatic revelation he'd hoped for, but he'd gained something perhaps even more valuable, a community united in the face of the unknown. As he prepared for another day of work, running on caffeine and determination, Michael Lawson knew that this was far from over. The mystery of the 3 a.m. phenomenon had only grown more intriguing, and he was more committed than ever to uncovering the truth, no matter where it might lead him. Little did he know, the calm of this uneventful night was merely the eye of the storm. The true nature of the disturbances was yet to reveal itself, and when it did, it would shake Michael and his neighbors to their very core. The doorbell rang at precisely 2:09 p.m., its chime echoing through Michael Lawson's eerily quiet house. He jolted awake from his fitful nap on the couch, momentarily disoriented. The past few days of constant vigilance and sleepless nights had taken their toll, leaving him in a perpetual state of exhaustion and hyper-alertness. Michael stumbled to the door, hastily smoothing down his rumpled shirt. He opened it to find a woman in her mid-40s, dressed in a crisp blue uniform with safeguard security emblazoned on the breast pocket. She carried a large toolbox and wore an expression of professional curiosity. "Mr. Lawson?" she asked, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Senior Systems Analyst for Safeguard. I understand you've been having some unusual issues with your security system?" Michael shook her hand, relief washing over him. "Dr. Rodriguez, thank you for coming. Please, come in." As he led her into the living room, Michael couldn't help but notice her eyes darting around, taking in the array of additional cameras and monitoring equipment he'd set up. "Quite a setup you've got here," she remarked, her tone neutral, but her eyebrows raised. Michael felt a flush of embarrassment. "I know it looks extreme, but I had to do something. The nightly alarms were driving me crazy." Dr. Rodriguez nodded, setting down her toolbox. Why don't you walk me through exactly what's been happening? Don't leave out any details, no matter how insignificant they might seem." For the next half hour, Michael recounted every incident, every theory, and every step he'd taken to solve the mystery. Dr. Rodriguez listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes in a small notebook. "And you say the alarm stopped when you organized the neighborhood watch?" she asked, tapping her pen thoughtfully against her chin. Michael nodded. "4 nights ago. Nothing since then. No alarms, no strange sounds. Nothing." Dr. Rodriguez hummed thoughtfully. "Interesting. Very interesting. Mind if I take a look at your system?" "Please." Michael gestured towards the control panel. "Be my guest." As Dr. Rodriguez began her examination, Michael hovered nearby, watching her every move with intense curiosity. She methodically checked each component, occasionally muttering to herself or consulting a handheld device. Hours passed, and the sun began to set. Michael's anxiety grew with each passing minute. "Have you found anything?" he asked, unable to contain himself any longer. Dr. Rodriguez straightened up from where she'd been examining the wiring behind the control panel. "Mr. Lawson, I've gone over every inch of your system. Electronically, it's functioning perfectly. There's no logical reason for it to be triggering false alarms." Michael's heart sank. But something has to be causing it. The alarms, the visual glitches on the cameras, my neighbors hearing strange sounds. It can't all be coincidence. "I didn't say it was coincidence," Dr. Rodriguez replied, her tone measured. "In fact, I've found something quite unusual." She reached into the open panel and carefully extracted what looked like a tiny metallic spider, no larger than a fingernail. It glinted in the fading sunlight, its surface covered in intricate, almost microscopic circuitry. Michael leaned in, his eyes wide. "What is that?" "I'm not entirely sure," Dr. Rodriguez admitted, her voice a mix of professional curiosity and concern. "It's not part of any security system I've ever seen. In fact, it's not like any technology I'm familiar with at all." She placed the tiny device in a clear plastic bag and sealed it. "Mr. Lawson, I'm going to need to take this back to our lab for analysis. In the meantime, I'd like to set up some additional monitoring equipment, if that's all right with you. We need to get to the bottom of this." Michael nodded eagerly. "Of course, anything you need, but what do you think it is? Who could have put it there?" Dr. Rodriguez's expression turned grave. "I don't want to speculate without more information, but I can tell you this. Whatever's been happening in your house, it's not a simple malfunction. Someone or something has been interfering with your system, and they've gone to great lengths to hide their tracks." As Dr. Rodriguez began setting up her equipment, Michael's mind raced. Who could have planted that device, and why? The implications were staggering and terrifying. "How long will it take to analyze that thing?" Michael asked, gesturing to the bag device. "I'll rush it to our lab tonight," Dr. Rodriguez replied, not looking up from her work. "With any luck, we'll have some preliminary results by tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, I'd like to stay here tonight if that's all right with you. I want to observe firsthand if anything happens." Michael agreed, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over him. On one hand, he was grateful for the expert presence and validation of his concerns. On the other, the discovery of the strange device had opened up a whole new realm of unsettling possibilities. As night fell, Michael and Dr. Rodriguez settled in for their vigil. The living room was bathed in the soft glow of multiple monitors, each displaying feeds from various cameras and sensors. "So, Dr. Rodriguez," Michael began, breaking the tense silence, "in all your years with Safeguard, have you ever seen anything like this?" She shook her head slowly. "Never. And please, call me Elena. I have a feeling we're going to be working closely on this for a while." The hours ticked by slowly. Michael found himself dozing off occasionally, only to jerk awake at the slightest sound. Elena remained alert, her eyes constantly scanning the monitors. As 3 a.m. approached, the tension in the room became palpable. Michael's heart raced, his palms sweaty, as he watched the clock tick closer to the fateful hour. 2:59, 3 hour, 3:01. Nothing happened. No alarm, no strange sounds, no visual distortions on the cameras. The house remained eerily quiet. Michael let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "I don't understand. Why isn't anything happening?" Elena frowned, her brow furrowed in concentration. It's possible that removing that device disrupted whatever was causing the disturbances. Or what? Michael prompted when she didn't continue. Or whoever was behind this realized we're on to them and they've changed their tactics, she finished grimly. The implications of her words sent a chill down Michael's spine. The idea that someone was actively manipulating his security system, possibly watching his every move, was terrifying. As dawn broke, Elena began packing up her equipment. "I'm going to get this device to the lab right away. I'll call you as soon as I have any information." Michael nodded, walking her to the door. "Thank you, Elena, for believing me, for everything." She gave him a small smile. "That's my job, Mr. Lawson. We'll get to the bottom of this, I promise." As he watched her drive away, Michael felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that he wasn't crazy, that there was tangible evidence of something unusual happening, but also a deep, gnawing fear of the unknown. What had he stumbled into? Exhausted, but too wired to sleep, Michael made his way to the kitchen to brew a pot of coffee. As he waited for it to percolate, he gazed out the window at his quiet suburban street. Everything looked so normal, so peaceful. How could something so bizarre, so potentially sinister, be happening right under everyone's noses? His phone buzzed, startling him. It was a message from Sarah. "Hey Mike, everything okay? Saw a safeguard van leaving your place." Michael stared at the message, unsure how to respond. How much should he tell her? How much could he tell her without sounding completely insane? Finally, he typed out a reply. "Had an expert check the system. Found something strange. I'll explain later. Thanks for checking in." As he hit send, Michael realized that his life had irrevocably changed. Whatever happened next, whatever the analysis of that strange device revealed, he was now part of something much bigger and potentially more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The coffee maker beeped, pulling him from his thoughts. As he poured himself a cup, Michael Lawson steeled himself for what was to come. The mystery of the 3 a.m. phenomenon had deepened, taking on a new, more ominous tone. But he was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. Little did he know, the discovery of the strange device was just the beginning. The truth behind the nightly disturbances was far more complex and far-reaching than he could have ever imagined, and it was about to turn his world, and potentially the world at large, upside down. Michael Lawson paced the length of his living room, his sock-clad feet wearing a path in the carpet. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, each second feeling like an eternity. It was 11:47 p.m., just over 3 hours until the dreaded 3 a.m. hour. His phone lay silent on the coffee table, mockingly still. He'd been waiting all day for a call from Dr. Elena Rodriguez about the strange device she'd found in his security system, but so far, nothing. The silence was maddening. Unable to bear the quiet any longer, Michael snatched up his phone and dialed the number Elena had given him. It rang once, twice, 3 times before going to voicemail. "You've reached Dr. Elena Rodriguez. I'm unavailable at the moment. Please leave a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible." Michael hung up without leaving a message, frustration building in his chest. What was taking so long? Surely they must have found something by now. A soft knock at the front door startled him out of his brooding. Cautiously he approached, peering through the peephole. Sarah stood on his porch, a concerned look on her face. Michael opened the door, forcing a smile. "Sarah, hi. What brings you by so late?" Sarah held up a Tupperware container. "I made too much lasagna and thought you might like some. Plus, I wanted to check on you. You've seemed pretty stressed lately." The gesture touched Michael, momentarily cutting through his anxiety. "That's really kind of you. Would you like to come in?" Sarah hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Sure, just for a bit." As they settled in the kitchen, Michael dished out the lasagna. The warm, comforting smell filled the air, a stark contrast to the tension that had permeated the house for weeks. "So," Sarah began, her tone casual but her eyes sharp, "want to tell me what's really going on? I saw that safeguard van yesterday, and you've been even more on edge since then." Michael sighed, pushing his food around on his plate. He'd been dreading this conversation, but he also desperately needed to confide in someone. "They found something," he said finally, his voice low. "In my security system. Some kind of device. It wasn't supposed to be there." Sarah's eyes widened. "What kind of device? Who put it there?" "I don't know," Michael admitted. "Dr. Rodriguez, the expert from Safeguard. She took it to their lab for analysis. I've been waiting to hear back from her all day." Sarah reached across the table, placing her hand on Michael's arm. "Mike, this sounds serious. Have you considered calling the police?" Michael shook his head. "And tell them what? That my alarm system was going off because of some mysterious device that might not even be illegal? They already think I'm losing it." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation hanging heavy between them. Finally, Sarah spoke up. "What can I do to help?" Michael looked at her, surprised and touched by the offer. "You believe me?" Sarah smiled softly. "Of course I do. You're not the type to make this stuff up, Mike. And besides, I heard those alarms too, remember?" For the first time in days, Michael felt a glimmer of hope. He wasn't alone in this. "Actually," he said, glancing at the clock, "would you mind staying for a while? It's almost time for, well, you know." Sarah nodded, understanding in her eyes. "The witching hour. Of course I'll stay." As midnight approached, Michael and Sarah moved to the living room. Michael explained the additional monitoring equipment Elena had set up, showing Sarah the various camera feeds and sensor readouts. "It's impressive," Sarah remarked, "but also a little scary. It's like something out of a spy movie." Michael chuckled darkly. "Yeah. Welcome to my life for the past few weeks." As the night wore on, they talked about everything and nothing. Childhood memories, favorite books, dreams for the future. Anything to keep their minds off the impending 3 a.m. hour. At 2:55 a.m., the conversation died down. Michael's eyes were glued to the clock, his body tense as a coiled spring. Sarah sat beside him on the couch, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm of his anxiety. 2:59 a.m. Michael held his breath, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure Sarah must be able to hear it. 3 a.m. came and went. The house remained silent. No alarms, no strange sounds, no visual distortions on the cameras. Nothing. Michael blinked, confused. "I don't understand. This is the second night in a row that nothing's happened." Sarah squeezed his hand. "Isn't that a good thing?" I don't know," Michael admitted. "Part of me is relieved, but another part, it feels wrong. Like the calm before a storm." They waited another hour, but the night remained peaceful. Eventually, Sarah stood up, stretching. "I should probably head home. Try to get some sleep, okay?" Michael nodded, walking her to the door. "Thanks for staying, Sarah. It meant a lot." After Sarah left, Michael found himself unable to sleep. The silence that had seemed so oppressive before now felt almost mocking. Had he imagined it all? Was he really losing his mind? As the first rays of dawn began to peek through his curtains, Michael's exhaustion finally overtook him. He drifted off into a fitful sleep, his dreams filled with shadowy figures and blinking lights. He awoke with a start several hours later, momentarily disoriented. The house was flooded with bright sunlight, a stark contrast to the tense darkness of the night before. Michael reached for his phone, his heart skipping a beat when he saw a missed call and a voicemail from Elena. With trembling fingers, he played the message. "Mr. Lawson, it's Dr. Rodriguez. I apologize for the delay in getting back to you. We've completed our initial analysis of the device and, well, I think it's best if we discuss this in person. Can you come to our lab this afternoon? It's urgent." The tone of Elena's voice sent a chill down Michael's spine. Whatever they'd found, it was big. As he prepared to leave for the lab, Michael's mind raced with possibilities. Who had planted that device? What was its purpose? And why had the nightly disturbances suddenly stopped? He was so lost in thought that he almost missed the unmarked van parked across the street. As he locked his front door, Michael caught a glimpse of movement inside the vehicle. A man in a dark suit was watching his house, speaking into what looked like a high-tech communications device. Michael's blood ran cold. He quickly turned away, trying to act natural as he walked to his car. As he drove away, he saw the van pull out behind him, keeping a discreet distance. His hands shook on the steering wheel as the reality of his situation sank in. This wasn't just about mysterious alarms anymore. He was being watched, followed. Whatever he'd stumbled upon, it was far bigger and more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. As he navigated the busy Detroit streets, Michael's mind whirled with questions and fears. Who were these people? What did they want? And most importantly, how deep did this conspiracy go? One thing was certain: the silent night had been an illusion, the calm before the storm. And now, as Michael drove towards what he hoped would be answers at the Safeguard lab, he couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was about to break, and he was right at its center. Little did Michael know, the revelations waiting for him at the lab would shake the very foundations of his reality, thrusting him into a world of advanced technology, shadowy organizations, and a truth far stranger than he could have ever imagined. The mystery of the 3 a.m. phenomenon was about to blow wide open, and nothing in Michael Lawson's life would ever be the same again. The Safeguard Security Laboratory was a stark, sterile environment that did little to calm Michael's frayed nerves. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as he followed a lab assistant through a maze of corridors, each lined with locked doors and ominous warning signs. "Dr. Rodriguez is waiting for you in Lab 3, the assistant said, gesturing to a door at the end of the hallway. "Good luck, Mr. Lawson." Michael's hand hesitated on the door handle. What truths awaited him on the other side? Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open. Elena Rodriguez stood hunched over a workbench, her face illuminated by the glow of a high-powered microscope. She looked up as Michael entered, dark circles under her eyes betraying her exhaustion. "Mr. Lawson, thank you for coming," she said, straightening up. "I apologize for the cryptic message, but what we've discovered, well, it's best discussed in person." Michael's heart raced. "What is it? What did you find?" Elena gestured to a nearby monitor. "Take a look at this." The screen displayed a magnified image of the device they'd found in Michael's security system. Its intricate circuitry glowed an eerie blue under the microscope's light. "This device," Elena began, her voice a mix of awe and concern, "is unlike anything we've ever seen. The level of miniaturization is decades ahead of current technology. But that's not the most interesting part." She tapped a few keys, and the image on the screen changed. Now it showed a complex series of waveforms and data readouts. "We've detected an energy signature emanating from the device. It's faint, but it's there. And it's not any form of energy we're familiar with." Michael's brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" Elena took a deep breath. "Mr. Lawson, Michael, we believe this device may not be of terrestrial origin." The words hung in the air, their implications too enormous to process immediately. Michael felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. "Are you saying aliens?" he whispered, the word feeling ridiculous even as he said it. Elena held up her hands. "I'm not saying anything definitive, but the technology in this device is so advanced, so utterly beyond our current capabilities, that we have to consider all possibilities. Michael sank into a nearby chair, his mind reeling. But why? Why my house? Why the 3 a.m. alarms? We have a theory about that, Elena said, pulling up another set of data on the screen. The energy signature we detected? It peaks at exactly 3 a.m. each night. We believe the device was attempting to, well, for lack of a better term, to communicate. Communicate with what? Michael asked, a chill running down his spine. Elena's expression was grim. That's what we don't know, and that's what worries us. As if on cue, Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, his blood running cold as he saw the notification, a motion alert from his home security system. What is it? Elena asked, noticing his expression. Someone's in my house, Michael said, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena's eyes widened. We need to go. Now. The drive back to Michael's house was a blur of tension and fear. Elena insisted on coming with him, making hurried phone calls to what sounded like government contacts as they sped through the streets of Detroit. As they pulled up to Michael's house, everything looked deceptively normal. The quiet suburban street was bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, neighbors' children playing in their front yards. Stay in the car, Michael said to Elena as he unbuckled his seatbelt. Like hell I will, she replied, checking what looked suspiciously like a firearm concealed under her lab coat. We're in this together now. They approached the front door cautiously. Michael's hand shook as he inserted his key, the lock clicking open with an ominous finality. The house was silent as they entered, but Michael could feel it in his bones. Something was different. Something was wrong. They moved through the rooms methodically, Elena taking the lead with her hand hovering near her concealed weapon. Everything seemed in order until they reached the living room. Michael's breath caught in his throat. The control panel for his security system was open, wires exposed. And there, nestled among the circuitry, was a device identical to the one they'd removed days earlier. How is this possible? Michael whispered. We took the other one. You have it in your lab. Elena's face was pale. It's not the same one. This is new. Before Michael could respond, a sound from upstairs made them both freeze. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, were coming down the hall. Elena drew her weapon, positioning herself between Michael and the staircase. Federal agent, she called out. Identify yourself. The footsteps paused, then continued their steady approach. Michael's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. A figure appeared at the top of the stairs. It was a man, tall and lean, dressed in an impeccable black suit that seemed to absorb the light around it. His face was obscured by shadows, but Michael could feel the weight of his gaze. Mr. Lawson, the man said, his voice smooth and unnaturally calm. Dr. Rodriguez, I believe we have much to discuss. Elena's grip on her weapon tightened. Who are you? How did you get in here? The man descended the stairs with fluid grace. As he stepped into the light of the living room, Michael gasped. The man's features were oddly symmetrical, almost too perfect to be real. And his eyes, they seemed to shift color as he moved, like oil on water. Who I am is not important, the man said. What matters is why I'm here. He turned to Michael, those unsettling eyes boring into him. You've stumbled onto something far bigger than you can imagine, Mr. Lawson. The device in your security system? It's a beacon, a call across the stars. Michael's mind struggled to process what he was hearing. A call to who? For what? The man's lips curled into what might have been a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. To those who watch, those who wait. You humans think you're alone in the universe, but you couldn't be more wrong. There are forces at work beyond your comprehension, Mr. Lawson. Forces that have been shaping your world for millennia. Elena stepped forward, her weapon still trained on the stranger. You're saying you're not human? The man's gaze shifted to her, and for a moment, Michael could have sworn he saw stars swirling in those impossible eyes. I am a messenger, the man said. A bridge between worlds. And now, thanks to Mr. Lawson's curiosity, the message has been received. They are coming. A chill ran down Michael's spine. Who's coming? What do they want? The man's expression turned grave. Change, Mr. Lawson. They bring change. Your world stands on the brink of a new era. Whether that change will be for better or worse, that remains to be seen. Suddenly, the house began to vibrate. A low hum filled the air, growing in intensity until Michael could feel it in his bones. The lights flickered, and outside, car alarms began to blare. The stranger seemed unperturbed by the chaos. "It begins," he said, his voice somehow audible above the growing din. "The beacon has served its purpose. The veil between worlds grows thin." Elena grabbed Michael's arm. "We need to get out of here, now." But Michael couldn't move. He stood transfixed as the air in the center of his living room began to shimmer and distort. The humming reached a fever pitch, and then, with a flash of blinding light and a thunderous crack, reality itself seemed to split open. Where moments before there had been empty space, now there was something else, a tear in the fabric of the world, through which Michael caught glimpses of impossible vistas, alien landscapes, unfathomable structures, and beings that defied description. The stranger turned to Michael one last time, his form beginning to blur and shift. "The choice is yours now, Mr. Lawson. Step forward into a new reality, or remain in the comfortable lies of your old world. But choose quickly. The window between worlds will not remain open for long." As the house shook around them and the portal pulsed with otherworldly energy, Michael Lawson faced the most important decision of his life. The mystery of the 3 a.m. phenomenon had led him to this moment, to the threshold of a truth far greater and more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. With Elena tugging at his arm, urging him to flee, and the stranger's words echoing in his mind, Michael took a step forward. Whatever lay beyond that shimmering portal, whatever cosmic drama he had unwittingly become a part of, he knew his life would never be the same again. The 3 a.m. alarm had been silenced, but a new awakening was just beginning. And as Michael Lawson stood on the brink of this new reality, he realized that the true mystery, the true adventure, was only just beginning. The world around Michael Lawson seemed to move in slow motion. The shimmering portal pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its edges flickering and dancing like a living thing. Elena's voice urging him to retreat sounded distant and muffled as if coming from underwater. "Michael, we have to go. It's not safe," Elena shouted, her grip on his arm tightening. But Michael couldn't move. His eyes were fixed on the strange visitor, the self-proclaimed messenger who was now beginning to fade into the swirling vortex. "Wait!" Michael called out, his voice cracking. "You can't just leave. I have so many questions." The messenger turned, his form now translucent and shimmering. "The answers you seek lie beyond, Mr. Lawson. The choice is yours." With a final enigmatic smile, the stranger vanished into the portal. The pull of the unknown was overwhelming, and Michael found himself taking a step forward. "Michael, no!" Elena's shout snapped him back to reality. She pulled him back with surprising strength, just as a pulse of energy erupted from the portal, shattering windows and sending furniture flying. "We need to leave now," Elena yelled over the deafening hum of the vortex. This time Michael didn't resist. They ran from the house, stumbling onto the front lawn as neighbors began to emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion. As they reached Elena's car, a blinding flash of light erupted from Michael's house, followed by a thunderous boom that shook the ground. When the light faded, an eerie silence fell over the neighborhood. Michael turned to look at his house, expecting to see it in ruins. Instead, it stood exactly as it always had, not a shingle out of place. The only evidence of the extraordinary events was the shattered windows and the faint, lingering smell of ozone in the air. What just happened?" Michael gasped, his mind reeling. Elena's face was grim as she started the car. "I don't know, but we need to get somewhere safe. I have a secure facility we can use to regroup and figure this out." As they sped away, Michael's phone buzzed incessantly with messages and calls from concerned neighbors. He ignored them all, his mind too overwhelmed to deal with explanations he didn't have. The secure facility turned out to be a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of Detroit. Elena ushered Michael inside, past layers of security that seemed excessive for a simple storage space. "What is this place?" Michael asked as they entered a high-tech command center, hidden behind a false wall. Elena sighed, slumping into a chair in front of a bank of monitors. "Welcome to my real office, Michael. I'm not just a security systems analyst. I work for a covert government agency tasked with investigating unusual phenomena." Michael's head spun. "You're some kind of secret agent, like Men in Black or something?" A wry smile crossed Elena's face. "Something like that, though reality is often less glamorous than the movies. We've been tracking anomalies like what happened at your house for years, but we've never seen anything on this scale before." She turned to the computers, her fingers flying over the keyboards as she pulled up data streams and satellite imagery. Michael watched in awe as screens filled with information he could barely comprehend. "There," Elena said, pointing to a map covered in pulsing red dots. "Energy signatures matching the one from your house are popping up all over the globe. Whatever that portal was, it wasn't an isolated incident." Michael's mouth went dry. "So what do we do now?" Elena's expression was grim. "We need to understand what we're dealing with, and for that we need to examine that device more closely." "But it's back at my house," Michael protested. "We can't go back there, it's not safe." Elena stood, a determined look in her eyes. "We don't have a choice. Whatever's happening, that device is the key. We need to retrieve it and analyze it here, where we have the proper equipment." The drive back to Michael's house was tense, the streets eerily quiet. As they approached his neighborhood, they saw emergency vehicles and news vans crowding the area. "How are we going to get past all that?" Michael asked. Elena reached into her jacket and pulled out a badge. "Leave it to me." With a confidence that came from years of practice, Elena navigated them through the police barricade, flashing her credentials and spinning a story about a gas leak investigation. Before Michael knew it, they were back inside his house. The living room was a mess of broken glass and overturned furniture, but the security panel remained untouched. Elena quickly removed the mysterious device, placing it in a lead-lined container. "Okay, let's get out of here before—" Elena's words were cut short by a noise from upstairs. They froze, listening intently. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, were moving across the upper floor. "I thought you said the house was clear," Michael whispered. Elena drew her weapon. "It was. Stay behind me." They crept up the stairs, Elena leading the way with her gun at the ready. The footsteps had stopped, but a faint light was visible under the door of Michael's home office. Elena held up 3 fingers, counting down silently. On 0, she kicked the door open, sweeping the room with her weapon. "Federal agent, hands where I can see them." Michael peered around Elena's shoulder and gasped. Sitting calmly at his desk, bathed in the glow of his computer screen, was himself. The other Michael looked up, a sad smile on his face. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Elena's grip on her weapon tightened. "Who are you? What is this?" The doppelganger sighed. "I'm Michael Lawson, or at least I was. It's complicated." Michael stepped forward, his mind reeling. "How is this possible? Are you from the future?" The other Michael shook his head. "Not exactly. I'm from a parallel reality, one where I made a different choice when that portal opened." Elena lowered her weapon slightly, confusion evident on her face. "You went through?" "I did," the doppelganger confirmed. "And what I saw, what I learned, it changed everything." Michael moved closer, studying his other self. The man looked older, wearier, with streaks of gray in his hair and lines of worry etched into his face. "Tell us," Michael urged. "What's on the other side? What's really going on?" The other Michael's eyes filled with a mixture of wonder and sorrow. The universe is so much vaster and more complex than we ever imagined. There are countless realities, countless versions of Earth, all connected by a cosmic web. The beings who created that device, they're the caretakers of that web. But why? Elena asked. Why reach out to us now? Because our reality, all realities, are in danger, the doppelganger explained. There's a cancer in the multiverse, a force that's consuming entire universes. The caretakers are recruiting allies from across realities to fight it. Michael's head spun with the implications. And they chose me? Why? The other Michael smiled ruefully. Not just you. Every version of you across countless realities. We're uniquely suited to perceive the connections between worlds. That's why the device activated in your house, why you could sense something was wrong. Elena holstered her weapon, her scientific curiosity overtaking her caution. This is incredible, but how do we know any of this is true? The doppelganger stood, moving to the window. Outside, the sky had taken on a strange, shimmering quality, like heat waves on a summer day. Because it's already starting, he said softly. The barriers between realities are weakening. Soon you'll be able to see it too. Glimpses of other worlds, other possibilities. As if on cue, the air in the room seemed to ripple. For a brief moment, Michael saw not his familiar office, but a high-tech laboratory filled with strange equipment. Then it was gone, leaving him dizzy and disoriented. What do we do? Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The other Michael turned back to them, his expression grave. We prepare. We learn to navigate the spaces between worlds. And when the time comes, we fight. Elena shook her head, struggling to process the enormity of what she was hearing. Fight what, exactly? The void, the doppelganger said, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and determination. A force of uncreation that threatens to unravel the very fabric of existence. And trust me, you're going to need all the help you can get. As the three of them stood in that ordinary suburban home office, the weight of this cosmic revelation settled over them. The mystery of the 3 a.m. phenomenon had led them to a truth far greater and more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. Michael Lawson looked at his other self, then at Elena, and finally out the window at the shimmering sky. He realized that his journey was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The hidden truth had been revealed, and with it, a new chapter in the story of not just Michael Lawson, but of all reality. As the boundaries between worlds continued to blur, Michael knew that the real adventure and the real danger lay ahead. The world had changed overnight, though most of humanity remained blissfully unaware. For Michael Lawson, Elena Rodriguez, and the doppelganger they now called Other Michael, the past week had been a crash course in interdimensional physics and cosmic warfare. They had converted Michael's basement into a makeshift command center, filled with monitors displaying news feeds from around the globe, and strange equipment cobbled together from Elena's agency resources and Other Michael's otherworldly knowledge. Michael stood before a large digital map, watching as more red dots appeared, each representing a new interdimensional anomaly. They're increasing exponentially, he muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Elena looked up from her computer, dark circles under her eyes betraying her exhaustion. The public can't ignore it much longer. Reports of mass hallucinations and atmospheric disturbances are flooding social media. Other Michael nodded grimly. The veil between realities is thinning faster than I anticipated. We're running out of time. A sharp knock at the basement door made them all jump. Michael exchanged worried glances with the others before heading up the stairs. He opened the door cautiously, then froze in surprise. Sarah? His neighbor stood on the other side, her face a mixture of concern and determination. Michael, we need to talk. Now. Before he could respond, Sarah pushed past him into the basement. She stopped short at the sight of the command center and the two other occupants, her eyes widening as she took in Other Michael. I knew it, she whispered. I knew something weird was going on. Michael hurried down the stairs. Sarah, I can explain. Save it. She cut him off. I'm not here for explanations. I'm here because I saw something last night, and I think you're the only one who might believe me. The tension in the room was palpable as Sarah recounted her experience. She described waking up at 3 a.m. to find her bedroom filled with a shimmering light. Through it, she had seen glimpses of other places, alien landscapes, futuristic cities, and terrifying voids of absolute nothingness. It lasted only a few seconds, Sarah concluded, her voice shaking slightly. But I know what I saw, and I know it has something to do with whatever's been happening at your house. Michael exchanged looks with Elena and other Michael. After a moment of silent communication, other Michael stepped forward. You're right, Sarah, he said gently. What you saw was real. The boundaries between realities are breaking down, and we're at the center of it. Over the next hour, they brought Sarah up to speed on the situation. To her credit, she took the news of multiple realities and cosmic threats with remarkable composure. So what's the plan? Sarah asked when they had finished. How do we stop this void? Elena sighed, gesturing to the array of equipment around them. We're still trying to figure that out. The device we found seems to be some kind of interdimensional communicator, but we haven't cracked its full capabilities yet. As if on cue, one of the monitors began to beep urgently. They all turned to see a new, massive energy signature blooming on the map. It's here, other Michael said, his face pale. The incursion point. The void is making its move. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. Where? Other Michael pointed to the map. Downtown Detroit, the old Michigan Central Station. Elena was already grabbing gear. We need to move, now. The drive to the station was tense, the streets eerily empty as they sped through the city. As they approached their destination, the sky above began to ripple and distort, taking on an oily, iridescent sheen. They pulled up to the massive abandoned train station just as a low thrumming vibration began to fill the air. The decaying Art Deco facade of the building seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it couldn't decide which reality it belonged to. What's the plan? Michael asked as they exited the car, staring up at the imposing structure. Other Michael pulled out a device that looked like a cross between a smartphone and a Star Trek tricorder. We need to get to the main concourse. That's where the dimensional tear is forming. If we can stabilize it, we might be able to communicate with the caretakers and get help. They entered the building cautiously, the grand decaying interior a stark contrast to the cosmic drama unfolding around them. As they made their way through debris-strewn hallways, reality itself seemed to fluctuate. One moment they were in the abandoned ruin, the next they caught glimpses of the station in its heyday, bustling with travelers from a bygone era. It's beautiful, Sarah whispered as they entered the main concourse, her voice echoing in the vast space. But there was no time to admire the architecture. In the center of the room, a swirling vortex of energy was forming, pulsing with an otherworldly light that hurt to look at directly. Other Michael rushed forward, his device beeping frantically. We need to form a perimeter. The tear is unstable. They spread out around the vortex, other Michael calling out instructions as they set up equipment. Michael found himself facing the main entrance, and that's when he saw them. A group of figures in sleek black suits was approaching, led by a familiar face, the strange messenger who had appeared in Michael's living room what felt like a lifetime ago. Step away from the portal, the messenger called out, his voice carrying an unnatural resonance. Elena drew her weapon. Federal agent, identify yourselves. The messenger smiled, the expression not quite reaching his eerily shifting eyes. We are the gatekeepers, Dr. Rodriguez. We maintain the boundaries between realities, and you are interfering with forces beyond your comprehension. Other Michael stepped forward, his face a mask of determination. You're wrong. We're trying to save reality itself. The void is coming, and we need the caretaker's help to stop it. The messenger's smile faded. The caretakers are a myth, a story told to children. We are the true guardians of the multiverse, and we will not allow your meddling to continue. As the gatekeepers advanced, The vortex behind them pulsed violently. Reality seemed to stretch and warp around them, and Michael caught terrifying glimpses of other worlds bleeding through, apocalyptic wastelands, thriving utopias, and things so alien he couldn't begin to describe them. "You don't understand," Michael shouted, desperation clear in his voice. "We're not your enemies. We're trying to save everything." The messenger raised a hand, energy crackling around his fingers. "Sometimes, to save the many, sacrifices must be made. Your reality has become a liability. It must be sealed off to protect the others." As the gatekeepers prepared to attack, a new sound cut through the chaos, a high, clear tone that seemed to resonate with the fabric of reality itself. Everyone froze, turning towards its source. There, emerging from the swirling vortex, was a being of pure light. It had no discernible form, shifting and flowing like liquid starlight. When it spoke, the words seemed to bypass their ears entirely, resonating directly in their minds. "Enough," the being said, its voice filled with ancient power and infinite compassion. The messenger fell to his knees. "Impossible," he whispered. "The caretakers are real?" The luminous being turned its attention to Michael and his group. "You have done well, Michael Lawson. All versions of you across all realities. You have seen the truth and chosen to fight." Michael stepped forward, awe and fear warring within him. You're the caretakers? Can you help us stop the void?" The being's light pulsed gently. "The void cannot be stopped, only balanced. It is a necessary force in the cosmic equation, but its current aggression threatens all of existence. We need allies from every reality to help restore the balance." The messenger stood shakily. We didn't know. We thought we were protecting the multiverse." "You have played your part," the caretaker said, "but the time for secrecy has passed. The multiverse stands on the brink of a new era, and all must choose their role in what is to come." As the being spoke, the vortex stabilized, the violent energy calming into a smooth, shimmering portal. Through it, Michael could see countless other versions of himself, standing in their own realities, facing their own portals. The caretaker turned back to Michael. "The choice is yours, as it has always been. Will you step forward into a new role as defenders of reality itself? Or will you remain in the world you know, forever changed by the knowledge you have gained?" Michael looked at Elena, at Sarah, at other Michael, and even at the humbled gatekeepers. In their eyes, he saw the same mix of fear, wonder, and determination that he felt. Taking a deep breath, Michael stepped towards the portal. "I think I speak for all of us when I say, we're ready. Whatever it takes to save reality, we're in." As Michael's words echoed through the grand concourse of Michigan Central Station, the portal flared with brilliant light. The 3 a.m. mystery that had started this journey now seemed like a distant memory, the prelude to an adventure beyond imagination. Michael Lawson and his unlikely allies stood on the threshold of a new chapter in the history of the multiverse. As they prepared to step through the portal into the unknown, they knew that the true confrontation, the battle for the very fabric of reality, was only just beginning. The swirling vortex of the portal enveloped Michael Lawson and his companions, their forms dissolving into streams of pure energy. For what felt like an eternity, they hurtled through a kaleidoscope of realities, catching fleeting glimpses of worlds both wondrous and terrifying. When the maelstrom finally subsided, they found themselves standing on what appeared to be a vast, crystalline platform suspended in an endless void. Stars and galaxies swirled around them, close enough to touch yet impossibly distant. "Where are we?" Sarah gasped, her voice filled with awe and a hint of fear. The luminous being that had identified itself as a caretaker materialized before them, its form constantly shifting like liquid starlight. "This is the Nexus." Its voice resonated in their minds. "The crossroads of all realities. From here, we observe and maintain the balance of the multiverse." Elena, ever the scientist, was already examining their surroundings with intense curiosity. This technology, It's beyond anything I could have imagined. It's not technology, not as we understand it, Other Michael explained, his eyes distant as if recalling painful memories. It's the pure manifestation of cosmic will. The caretaker's light pulsed gently. Correct. What you perceive is your mind's attempt to comprehend the incomprehensible. But we have no time for further explanations. The void approaches. As if on cue, the star-filled space around them began to darken. Entire galaxies winked out of existence, replaced by an all-consuming nothingness that seemed to devour light itself. My God, Michael whispered, the scale of the threat finally becoming clear. How do we stop that? The caretaker's form flickered urgently. We cannot stop it, only contain it. The void is a necessary force of cosmic renewal, but it has grown too powerful, too hungry. We must restore the balance. Suddenly, the crystalline platform beneath their feet hummed to life. Intricate patterns of light raced across its surface, forming a complex, multi-dimensional map of the multiverse. Each of you represents a unique facet of reality, the caretaker explained. Your combined perspectives, your very essence, can help us weave a new cosmic tapestry to hold back the void. The messenger, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. But how? We're just people, humans. What can we do against something like that? He gestured towards the encroaching darkness. You underestimate the power of consciousness, of free will, Other Michael said, his voice firm. I've seen worlds fall to the void, and I've seen realities saved by the choices of individuals. We might be small, but we're not powerless. The caretaker's light intensified. Precisely. Your decisions, your actions, they ripple across the multiverse. Now, you must focus that power. Remember why you fight, what you seek to protect. Let your will become one with the cosmic balance. Michael closed his eyes, concentrating on everything that had led him to this moment. The mystery of the 3 a.m. alarms, the fear and wonder of discovering the truth about reality, the bonds he'd formed with Elena, Sarah, and even his other self. He thought of his home, his world, and all the infinite possibilities that existed across the multiverse. Around him, he could sense the others doing the same. Elena's analytical mind grappling with the enormity of their task, Sarah's unwavering determination to protect her reality, Other Michael's hard-won wisdom and regret, even the messenger's dawning understanding of his true purpose. As their thoughts and emotions intertwined, the platform beneath them began to pulse with energy. Streams of light shot out into the void, forming a web of interconnected realities. It's working! Elena shouted, her eyes wide with amazement. But the void pushed back. Tendrils of absolute nothingness probed at their defenses, seeking weak points in the newly formed cosmic web. We need more! Other Michael yelled over the rising crescendo of energy. More connections, more perspectives. As if in answer to his call, new figures began to materialize on the platform. Michael gasped as he recognized them. Versions of himself from across the multiverse. There was a Michael in a spacesuit, another wielding what looked like a magic staff, one dressed in Renaissance clothing, and countless others, each representing a different path his life could have taken. The caretaker's voice rang out stronger than ever. Unite your wills. Forge the bonds between realities. Become the guardians you were meant to be. Michael reached out, clasping hands with his alternate selves. He felt a surge of energy flow through him, memories and experiences not his own flooding his consciousness. In that moment, he was every Michael Lawson that had ever existed or ever would exist. The light emanating from the platform intensified, becoming almost blinding. The web of realities expanded exponentially, pushing back against the encroaching void. For a moment that seemed to last an eternity, there was perfect balance. The light of creation and the darkness of uncreation held each other in check, neither advancing nor retreating. Then, slowly, imperceptibly at first, the void began to recede. We did it, Sarah breathed, her voice filled with disbelief and exhaustion. The caretaker's form solidified slightly, taking on a more humanoid appearance. No, young one. You have only begun. The balance has been restored, but it must be maintained. The void will always be a threat, and reality will always need its guardians. As the immediate danger passed, the myriad versions of Michael began to fade, returning to their own realities. But the connection remained, a gossamer thread linking them across the vastness of the multiverse. Michael turned to his companions, seeing the same mix of exhaustion and exhilaration on their faces that he felt. "So what happens now?" he asked. The caretaker gestured, and a series of smaller portals appeared around them. "Now, you have a choice. You can return to your realities, armed with the knowledge and power you have gained, or you can remain here, as part of the cosmic chorus, helping to maintain the balance for all eternity." Elena stepped forward, her scientific curiosity warring with her sense of duty. "If we go back, will we remember all this?" "You will remember," the caretaker assured them, "and you will be changed. Your perception of reality will never be the same, but you will also have the power to protect your worlds from interdimensional threats." Sarah looked at the portal leading back to their reality, then at the vast expanse of the Nexus. I think I want to go back. Our world still needs us, doesn't it?" Michael nodded, feeling a pull towards home that he couldn't quite explain. "I agree. We've been given this knowledge, this power, for a reason. We should use it to protect our reality." Other Michael smiled sadly. "I'll stay. My reality is gone, consumed by the void. But here, I can make a difference. I can help prevent what happened to my world from happening to others." The messenger stepped forward, his earlier arrogance replaced by a newfound humility. "I too will remain. The gatekeepers were misguided, but our intention to protect the multiverse was pure. I would learn from the caretakers if they'll have me." The caretaker's light pulsed with what felt like approval. "All have their part to play in the cosmic ballet. Those who stay will be welcomed. Those who return will not be forgotten." Michael, Elena, and Sarah stood before the portal to their home reality. The events of the past few weeks, the 3 a.m. alarms, the discovery of the interdimensional device, the cosmic battle they'd just fought, felt simultaneously like a distant dream and an inescapable new reality. "Ready?" Michael asked, looking at his companions. Elena nodded, a spark of excitement in her eyes. "Ready to revolutionize interdimensional physics? Absolutely." Sarah took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Ready to never look at the world the same way again? As I'll ever be." As they prepared to step through the portal, the caretaker's voice echoed one last time in their minds. "Remember, guardians of reality. The multiverse is vast and full of wonders, but also fraught with dangers. Stay vigilant, stay curious, and above all, stay connected to each other and to the cosmic whole." With a final look back at the awe-inspiring vista of the Nexus, Michael, Elena, and Sarah stepped through the portal. In a flash of light, they found themselves back in Michael's living room, exactly where their journey had begun. The house was quiet, the 3 a.m. alarm silenced forever. But as Michael looked out the window at the seemingly ordinary suburban street, he knew that nothing would ever be truly ordinary again. The mystery that had started with a malfunctioning security system had led them to the very edges of reality and back. And while the immediate crisis had been averted, Michael Lawson knew that their work as guardians of reality was just beginning. As the first light of dawn broke over Detroit, Michael smiled. The 3 a.m. phenomenon might have been resolved, but a new chapter in the story of the multiverse was just beginning. And he, along with Elena and Sarah, would be right at the heart of it. The alarm clock on Michael's nightstand clicked over to 3:01 a.m., marking the start of a new day and a new era. The universe, in all its infinite complexity, continued its eternal dance. And somewhere in the vast cosmic tapestry, 3 newly minted guardians of reality prepared to face whatever wonders and challenges the multiverse might throw their way.